Okay, welcome everybody. I'd like to call the regular city council meeting of the city of San Juan Bautista to order. It's Tuesday, October 19th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Vice Mayor Flores, will you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation under God,
indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Deputy City Clerk, may I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Mayor Jordan,
Present.
Vice Mayor Flores,
Present.
Councilmember Edge,
Excused.
Councilmember Friels,
Excused.
Councilmember Freeman.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. This meeting will be conducted pursuant to the provisions of the Government Code Section 54953E1A. In order to minimize the spread of COVID-19 virus, the City Council is conducting this meeting by Zoom webinar and will be offering alternative options for public participation. You are encouraged to watch the meeting live on Zoom or Facebook. Please follow the County Health and Human Service Agency's advisories and the CDC guidelines regarding preventative measures and do your part to help flatten the curve and prevent further spread of COVID-19. Public comments can be made during the meeting by watching the meeting on Zoom at 832-7727-3209 or calling into 669-900-6833 and entering the webinar ID 832-7727-3209. If you're on a phone, please dial *9 when you are called upon. Public comment. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the council on matters not on this agenda. The law does not permit the council action or extended discussion of any item not on the agenda except under special circumstances. If the council action is requested, the council may place the matter on a future agenda. Deputy City Clerk, do we have any public comments on items not on the agenda?
And oh yes, I have Nancy Carlisle.
Welcome, Nancy. You have 3 minutes. Bless your bones, Deborah Hall.
I'm sorry, what did you say? I have 3 minutes. What was that comment?
You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So just a little history. On July the 1st, I requested a flag to be flown under the same authority as used to fly the flag in June. That request has gone unanswered and unresponded to, except some incorrect information. But in any case, at the September meeting, I also had a public comment, and relying on Mayor Jordan's word at that meeting that I would be on a future agenda, I submitted to be on the agenda for October. And again, no response. But when I called the deputy city manager last week, she said that if I wanted to be on the agenda, that I should call Mayor Jordan. And that's what I did. And we finally did connect this morning. And I'm asking to be on the agenda as an item to fly a flag once again in the same manner as the flag was flown in June. I'm a little stymied. I don't know where to go from here. I've been requesting and requesting, and I'm not responded to. And it's very frustrating. So I'm asking the council, what would you suggest that I do next?
Thank you very much for your comments. Deputy City Clerk, do we have any further? Public comment?
No, I do not see any other hands raised.
Thank you very much. Consent items. All matters listed under the consent agenda may be enacted by one motion authorizing actions indicated for those items so designated. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless requested by a member of the City Council, a staff member, or a citizen. Council members, are there any items that you wish to pull from the consent agenda? Vice Mayor Flores?
I have none.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Freeman?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you very much. I have one comment to make on 3C. If we can change the attested by from the city clerk to the deputy city clerk.
Certainly.
And I think that's the only one under this item. And that's going to be the same for everything. The same for 3E. Okay. Are there any public comments on this? On the, we're looking for public comments on the consent items.
Right, I have a someone with a telephone number up there ending 6540. And I will allow to talk. If they would unmute, please.
Thank you. Welcome. Can you please state your name and where you are from?
Hi. This is Nancy Carlisle. I really didn't get to finish my 3 minutes. And also, I didn't get a response on how I was to proceed.
We're on a different subject. We don't have to listen. Agenda item.
Then there are no other public comments.
I have, is the 265 also Nancy?
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much. May I have, except for the attesting to, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right.
May I have a roll call, please?
Wait. Grab my paper. Okay. Councilmember Edge is excused tonight. Councilmember Flores.
Aye. Yes.
Councilmember Friels is excused tonight. Councilmember Freeman.
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
All members of the council being present, the motion on stated, as stated by the maker passes 3-0 with two absences.
Thank you very much. Presentations, proclamations, informational items, and reports. Stormwater Resources Plan presentation by Andrea Kingsbury of Wallace Group. Andrea, welcome. Carrie, welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having us. I'm going to share my screen for the presentation. Give me one moment. Are you all able to see that?
Yes, thank you very much.
Great. Carrie, go ahead and take it away.
Great, thanks, Andrea. Good evening, Ms. Mayor, members of the council, and members of the staff and public. My name is Carrie Wagner, and I am with Wallace Group. Here with me is Andrea Kingsbury, also with Wallace Group. We are here to present to the City of San Juan Bautista the Greater Hollister Area Stormwater Resource Plan. Go ahead.
There.
So just to give a little bit of background, the overview of the presentation for today, we're just going to talk about the legislative background, the purpose of the Stormwater Resource Plan, the agency collaboration that was completed for the project, the Stormwater Resource Plan boundary, identification and prioritization of projects, and the next steps. So first, let me give you a little bit of background. Stormwater Grant Program from the California State Water Resources Board. The purpose of this grant program is to promote beneficial use of stormwater and dry weather runoff in California. There was funding that was made available through Prop 1 that authorized $5 billion in water projects. Of this, $200 million in grant funds were for multi-benefit water management projects. Go ahead. Prop 1 grant, round 2 grant funding was kicked off in 2020. In July 2020, the City of Hollister applied for round 2 of the Prop 1 grant funding, which they hired Wallace Group to complete that grant funding. We did this for their industrial wastewater treatment plant upgrades for stormwater diversion that is currently in design right now. We submitted that project. It was going to be used for matching funds of $4.7 million. The grant was for the Bridge Road Trash Capture Project, which is the City of Hollister's largest watershed, is the Bridge Road outfall to the San Benito River. When we submitted that Prop 1 grant application, that application wasn't immediately selected, but we had follow-up conversations with the state, and they had identified that it was favorably reviewed, and it was actually placed first on the standby list. So right now we've submitted the grant application, and we're waiting for authorization from the state, which we have been told by the end of the month that the city should be getting awarded grant funding. So then what's the purpose of why we're here tonight, and what does this have to do with City of San Juan Bautista? As part of the Prop 1 grant funds and this entire project, one of the requirements is to prepare a stormwater resource plan. This is of the Division of Water Quality developed the Stormwater Resource Plan guidelines consistent with the water code provisions enacted by SB 985. And there's a self-certification checklist. So as part of the grant application, the city ultimately, in order to be in compliance and receive the grant funds, they would have to complete a stormwater resource plan, which they did not have prior to submitting the grant. And one of the requirements with the grant is that you have to have it submitted within 3 months of the approval of the grant. So we've actually been provided a little bit of additional time since the city was not awarded immediately the grant funding. Go ahead. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrea, and Andrea is going to give a little bit more detail, just some additional background on the Stormwater Resource Plan and how we've gotten from where we are today and how it includes City of San Juan Bautista.
Thank you, Carrie. Yeah, so we are currently in the final draft of the Greater Hollister Area Stormwater Resource Plan. So why is the Stormwater Resource Plan important? How is it different? Well, the key here really is that it focuses on watershed-based planning for stormwater management. Traditional approaches to stormwater typically include treatment prior to stormwater entering a storm drain system and ultimately entering our rivers and our oceans. Watershed-based planning really focuses on the natural hydrology within an existing watershed's landscape. And so this type of approach focuses on stormwater as a resource and not just something to merely treat and discharge into our oceans. So watershed-based planning encourages multiple benefit type projects, and it also, an important aspect to the stormwater resource plan is that it must also fit into the broader water management goals of the Integrated Regional Water Management Plan, which in our case is the Pajaro River Watershed IRWNP. So the organization of the Stormwater Resource Plan really follows the State Water Board guidelines that Carrie was mentioning. This graphic here outlines the different chapters that are found within the plan. So the chapters describe the different planning objectives, the watershed characteristics, water quality compliance, description and prioritization of projects, implementation strategy, and finally, community education through public outreach and participation. So the city of San Juan Bautista is within the Pajaro River watershed, which spans these 4 counties and 4 water districts. The Stormwater Resource Plan guidelines are specific that a plan's boundaries should not be based on city or political boundaries, but rather it should be based on accepted watershed delineations, such as those used by USGS or the United States Geologic Survey. So that is what we followed. Shown here in red is the Greater Hollister Area Stormwater Resource Plan boundary. Starting with the city of Hollister, we worked outwards and encompassed the different watersheds within this northern San Benito County region, which the city of San Juan Bautista is part of. And these are the 8 sub-watersheds designated by USGS, all of which are tributary to the Pajaro River. So the city of San Juan Bautista falls under the San Juan Canyon sub-watershed, and you'll see here in this exhibit as well, the neighboring South Santa Clara, Santa Cruz County, and Greater Monterey County have all done a stormwater resource plan. So for agency collaboration, the city of Hollister is the submitting agency for submitting this plan to the State Water Board, but we wanted to highlight that this plan has been a collaborative effort with the city of San Juan Bautista, San Benito County Water District, and the Pajaro River Water Flood Prevention Authority. So each of these local agencies has provided us resources and applicable knowledge to help us regionalize the stormwater resource plan and focus on how that greater Hollister area shown in that red boundary plays a larger role in the Pajaro River watershed. So there are significant water quality concerns in the Pajaro River watershed. This here is just a table to show the state's Clean Water Act Section 303D list of impaired water bodies. It shows the different pollutants and stressors found in all of the water bodies that are specific to this plan. So this is our main issue to solve, and really back to focusing on that watershed-based planning approach in order to address not only those water quality concerns, but also identify projects that might also have a flood control benefit, water supply, groundwater management benefit. We solicited to those different local agencies to help us identify stormwater and dry weather runoff projects within that region, and that resulted in the identification of 8 projects, 3 programs, and 4 opportunities. And this here on this slide is just an example of the cut sheets that are found in the Stormwater Resource Plan that provide a summary of those different projects, programs, and opportunities. So for the 8 projects identified, we performed a benefits analysis. Each project was broken down into a quantifiable metric as shown here in the red table, using results from stormwater modeling and previous studies that had been done. This gray table over here is from the State Water Board guidelines, and it provides a breakdown of the different benefit categories to be met. So water quality, water supply, flood management, environmental, and community benefits. And those are broken down into main and additional stormwater management benefits. So with this benefits analysis, it allowed us to prioritize the different projects that we identified. So if project funding was available, the project received 10 points. If the project was located on publicly owned lands, it received 15 points. Main stormwater management benefits were given a score on a scale of 0 to 5. And then we also have the multi-benefits analysis, which were given a score of 4 for main benefits and 2 for additional benefits, for a total possible score of 100 points. This here is the project prioritization table found in Chapter 5 of the Stormwater Resource Plan, showing the metrics for each of the 8 projects identified. The most noteworthy projects for the City of Hollister, as Carrie had mentioned, were the Industrial Wastewater Treatment Plant stormwater upgrades and the Bridge Road Trash Capture Project, both of which the city used to apply for the Prop 1 grant funding. Additionally, you'll see here, the fourth one down, the City of San Juan Bautista's Wastewater Treatment Plant Regionalization Project with the City of Hollister Regional Domestic Wastewater Treatment Plant was identified as a priority project in this Stormwater Resource Plan. So I'm just going to briefly go over those 3 projects. The stormwater upgrades at the Industrial Wastewater Treatment Plant received the highest priority scoring for the Stormwater Resource Plan because this project proposes to convert underutilized wastewater ponds to stormwater detention and percolation ponds so that stormwater can be treated through groundwater infiltration and replenish groundwater supply instead of getting discharged straight to the San Benito River. So this project reduces pollutant loads to San Benito River, and it also benefits the upstream watershed that is classified as a disadvantaged community. The next project that was mentioned, the Bridge Road Trash Capture Project, was identified to meet the State Water Board's trash requirements. This is part of the City of Hollister's largest watershed that includes disadvantaged communities. So this project proposes 4 large trash capture units working in parallel to capture trash and debris greater than 5 millimeters that would normally enter the San Benito River. So this project's pollutant load reduction is estimated at approximately 76% based on our modeling. And of course, we are here tonight to highlight that the San Juan Bautista Wastewater Treatment Plant Regionalization Project with the City of Hollister Regional Domestic Wastewater Treatment Plant has been identified in the Stormwater Resource Plan. And that's really because this project provides water quality benefit by reducing the high levels of contaminant in the effluent that currently discharges to the San Juan Creek, which is a tributary to the San Benito and Pajaro rivers. So this project proposes to bring the city's wastewater treatment plant into compliance with regulatory requirements by rerouting the wastewater flows to the City of Hollister's Regional Domestic Wastewater Treatment Plant, where it can be used there either as recycled water or for infiltration. And just as a reminder, inclusion of these projects into a stormwater resource plan positions them to receive future state grant funding for stormwater projects per Senate Bill 985. So we're currently here at our next steps. We actually recently submitted to the State Water Board about a few weeks ago for review. Once we have concurrence with the State Water Board that this plan does meet water code requirements and their guidelines, we will present to the City of Hollister for adoption of the plan. And finally, the last step is to submit to the Regional Water Management Group for adoption into the Pajaro River Watershed IRWMP. That's an overview of our work on the Greater Hollister Area Stormwater Resource Plan. Thank you for your time, and Carrie and I are available for any questions.
Wow, thank you very much. Great presentation. Vice Mayor Flores, questions, comments, concerns?
Comment, I have great presentation, very clear, really nice. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Freeman?
Yes, following up on Vice Mayor Flores' comments, thank you for the excellent presentation. I do have one question. On your Bridge Road trash capture, are those going to be in-ground, what I call catch basins or concrete vaults that have filter media in them to capture the up to 5 milligram contaminant issues?
Yes, what we're proposing or what we will be identifying, we haven't put that one into design yet because we're waiting for the grant funding. But they are CDS units, full capture systems. They're below grade. There are a couple of different options that we'll be looking at, but most likely we'll be focusing on the CDS units.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Are there any public comments on this, Deputy City Clerk?
I don't see any hands raised by the public, no.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Wallace Group. That was an excellent presentation. We really appreciate you coming and working with us and everybody else affiliated with this project. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
It's our pleasure. I do want to give thanks to the City of Hollister, as well as the collaboration from Pajaro. They are the funding resource for this. They have provided the funding to prepare the stormwater resource plan, as well as some supplemental funding from Pajaro Flood Management Group. And it benefits, fortunately, it benefits the county, San Benito County Water District, and the city of San Juan Bautista. As Andrea mentions, it opens you up for the ability to further pursue grant funding potentially, which is exceptional. So if you have an opportunity, I definitely would encourage you to give thanks to the city of Hollister for that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thanks for that.
Well, we appreciate our time tonight, and it's been fun working on the project, and good luck with your wastewater project.
Thank you. 4B, Treasurer's Report and Monthly Financial Statements by Treasurer Michelle Sabathia. If our City Treasurer is ready, the proverbial floor is yours. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Good to see everyone. So let's jump into a brief overview of the financials. So general fund year to date, our net effect was currently a positive balance of 94,000. So the month over month change there was an increase of 93K. So that was really good. The increase is related to higher sales tax revenues this month. So that's predominantly the driver. On the expenditure side, you'll see on the warrant listing, we paid out some of our normal vendors. Specifically for September, a couple of vendors that stood out were the Wells Fargo payment, which is a bond account that we pay out twice in a year, specifically April and in September. So that's one of the larger payments that you'll see on our warrant listing. The next one down would be our Stantec Consulting Services, which is a consulting firm we hired to assist us with the wastewater project from San Juan Bautista to Hollister. And this was double its normal amount due to a backdated invoice from a prior month. So that's why you're seeing the slight uptick there. As well as for CSG Consultants, we also did have a backdated invoice from a prior month as well. And what do they do for us, right? Those are the fees for our city engineer and our city inspector, and a couple of other items. And one other item that stood out would be the Crisp Company, sorry about that, which was a safety project to remove and install new parking stall stripes. So that's what that was. Those are some of the items that stood out. If there's more, feel free to let me know and I can address those later. For the Water Enterprise Fund, year to date, our net effect is currently a positive balance of 86,000. The month over month change here was an increase of 40K. The revenues are in line with budget, running at about 17%. I would say that there's nothing that stands out too alarming here. On the expenditure side, I would say that there's no new call outs as well. And for the sewer enterprise side, year to date, our net effect is currently a positive balance of 119,000. The month over month change was an increase of 70K here. The increase is predominantly related to higher commercial and industrial user revenue. And on the expenditure side, we had some chemical testing, but I would say it's nothing material that stood out this month. So that's being consistent right now, month over month. And that's all I have for now, unless you guys have questions.
Awesome, very good. Thank you very much. Nicely done. Vice Mayor Flores? Questions, comments, concerns?
No
Thank you
comments.
very
for
much.
the report.
Councilmember Freeman?
No questions. Just great job, Michelle, as always. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the public? Questions?
No, there are no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Michelle. Excellent job as always. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks. City Manager's report. The staff report will be given by our City Manager, Don Reynolds. Don, I'm sorry. Can you unmute yourself? Sorry about that. I thought that was my computer, not you.
That's okay. Sorry about that. I should have figured this out by now. Sorry, how embarrassing. Yes, so the work of the Assistant City Manager and I are mostly reflected in tonight's agenda. We've been focused on those same issues that are before you in this packet, and a few more, of course, and I'll just outline them quickly for you. I wanted to thank the City Council. I try and get to the International City Manager Association Conference, not every year, but maybe every 5 years or so. As you may know, it's hard when you're a small city to go to these big conferences, and they talk about police departments that have more staff than we have citizens in our city. So you have to pick and choose. Some of the keynote speakers were excellent. This one speaker spoke on what to expect as we return to work. She was insisting that hybrid doesn't work. And you know, so she basically thought the new norm was going to be a little bit chaotic as we come back to work. And she recommended that we get back to basics. And I've done some of that in this agenda tonight. A lot of the conversations focus on racial equity and improving community policing efforts. San Antonio has something they refer to as an equity atlas, which is a great way of mapping equity for every department in their whole city. It's interesting stuff. I did go to a few sessions, the one on historical small towns, budgets in crisis. Ours is not, but it's always good to know what to do. And then densifying downtown was one of the keynote speakers as well. And we've seen some of that in California, which is generally on the cutting edge. And when it comes to issues like SB 9, where single family lots can be subdivided, that's the idea of densifying downtown. And the whole effort regarding accessory dwelling units is another idea of densifying downtown, just getting away from the single family lots that cause sprawl, basically. We've heard in our Urban Growth Boundary Committee, which is on schedule to meet again soon, that if we don't grow out, we'll have to grow up. And so that's what the densifying downtown theme is, and it's common in our state of California. There was a great course on leadership, improving the city's organizational culture. And I put a lot of thought into this since attending this course, because I realized that the way I do things is not the way the culture of our organization should necessarily do things. After all, I have attention deficit disorder, and I'm generally psychotic half the day. So I don't want you guys to behave like that. So what kind of culture am I trying to encourage? You know, I did mention to several of you that I was bringing forward some HR policy updates, and that speaks a lot to my effort to improve our culture and to and describe what that culture is. 2 items on the agenda tonight: the revisions to the maintenance worker job descriptions and the office technician. We're going to broaden the number of candidates we get for positions. And by broadening that, we're making it more equitable. I'm trying to remove barriers, trying to remove credentials and educational requirements for experience, and trying to be more flexible. And this is actually a more equitable approach that encourages more teamwork. So that's where I'm trying to take the culture, and I'm going to try and make that more pronounced, inspired by this one session. So the HR, the tuition reimbursement and an overtime policy, I had written the reports and they didn't get on the agenda. That's my fault. So they will come back for your information at the next council meeting. Yeah, I think it's really important, and I think the council generally agrees that we need to encourage our employees to grow while they're working for us and help them with tuition and educational opportunities. As you know, code enforcement's been very busy. He did spend a week in training, which he's still attending courses because you can take them online through December 31st. He spent a lot of time with sheds on lot lines, cars parked over 72 hours, commercial truck enforcement. I had 3 meetings with citizens that were concerned of enforcement efforts, which tells me he's doing his job. He's not Mr. Popular out there, that's for sure. Solid waste, we had scheduled originally Selena Stotler from the Integrated Waste Management to come tonight and talk about SB 1383. And this is a law that's been in place for some time now, and I'll allow them the chance to describe it in more detail. But what it's coming down to is enforcement of compostable food waste and composting the food waste and other organics, and just doubling the compostable amount that we currently send to the landfill. And so there comes with that into effect a whole enforcement program that we will have to adopt, and a fine system that we'll have to adopt in 2023. So look to Integrated Waste Management and the city attorney and others working towards putting SB 1383 in effect. I think especially on my mind as I came to work Monday morning was PG&E. So I had an opportunity to speak with Jenna Arnold, our PG&E representative, about transformers in our city and some of the problems we've had recently. And she and I talked first about the fire we had Monday, October 11th behind someone's school. That could have been it was a really dangerous situation. Fortunately, the school had just let out most of its students, and fortunately the wind was blowing south towards Hollister, so that fire was on the south side of the campus, and the school was not damaged. But a lot of people heard popping noises, and Jenna and I talked about was that PG&E's issue, and frankly they don't know. They're still investigating that. A lot of people seem to have jumped to the conclusion that it is PG&E's issue, but assure you that it's still under investigation, and we'll hear what their final conclusions are. But we've had a number of transformer issues in our city in the past 6 months, and I mentioned that to her. And she's described a situation where if it hasn't rained for a long time, debris collects on top of those transformers, and it'll rain and then seep into the insulation and can cause it to short out. And so our first rain Sunday, October 17th, brought that to our attention. At 4th and Polk Street, our firefighters were standing beneath that pole when the transformer exploded, and we're glad that they wear those helmets and kept the sparks off of them. But we're glad that they were there, in particular, as the whole top of that pole had blown off, and just super unusual. But what she described to me was that she was responsible that night for the whole south of San Francisco area. And some of the cities, South San Francisco, had dozens of transformers go off. That doesn't make our case any better, and it certainly was frightening. But we're grateful for our fire department. They were excellent at the fire. Chief Bedoyo bringing in extra resources, even the airplane, to watch as that fire was controlled by multiple jurisdictions. And you watched mutual aid come into effect. In addition to the transformer issues, Sunday night we had 2 bad accidents, and that also caused us to call in mutual aid because we needed help with ambulance services and paramedics. So during that time, we didn't realize that one of our lift stations had gone down, and we had an issue at our wastewater treatment plant with the power going out. And so we were able to respond to it on time. We have a claim from one homeowner who had some sewage backup that was indeed our fault from Sunday night, a small claim of a couple $100. So we're going to take care of that bill for them and work towards installing auto dialers for our lift stations. Apparently, some of them are set up on a Sentry alarm system and others are set up on the internet. And when the power went out, we lost access. So we're looking at buying auto dialers for our lift stations. Real quick, I always want to touch base on these two, Rudy Park. We did receive 5 bids, which is excellent. We hope to bring in the award of contract November 16th. We got fairly good prices, but we'll need a small budget amendment to pay for the whole contract. We'll have a pre-construction meeting with the contractor in the neighborhood. These were big firms. This one firm, MP3, Monterey Peninsula Engineering, they're a huge, huge firm. So I'm amazed that they're bidding on our little park, but that shows us that we're getting good prices. And the same was true for Franklin Park. There we received 8 bids as of October 15th, and we're ready to award the contract November 16th as well. That one also came in a little bit high. But both of these parks will be funded with Prop 68 money that we've had in our budget of about $200,000 for the past 2 years. So it's state money that we're using to fix these parks. We just need to amend the budget so that it meets the contract requirements. So we'll have a pre-construction meeting with the neighborhood in Franklin Park as well, Franklin Circle, the park in Franklin Circle, because we have parking issues and construction staging issues there. We need to work out all the logistics with the neighborhood. So you wait a long time for construction to begin, and then, oh my gosh, what are all these tractors doing in my front yard? So we'll work closely with the community in both cases. Rudy Park should go quickly. Franklin Park may last into the winter months, which may be a challenge if it gets wet on us. We had a good intergovernmental committee meeting October 7th, and in the future, we're going to be looking at animal regulation. And we have 2 or 3 issues come up a month recently regarding animal regulation. And then they're also going to be talking about Gavilan College. I'll let the IG committee members talk about that when their chance comes up. So city council meetings with the Zoom hybrid. After we had our equipment specs identified by our volunteer, EJ Sabathia, I had to bounce them off and go through peer review with CMAP and with our computer technicians, RX Tech. And it's really important with CMAP because they're going to have to become Zoom experts and help us manage the hybrid Zoom atmosphere. The cameras are going to be pre-programmed, so there won't be anyone manning a camera the way they did in 1958 at the Art Linkletter show. We're going to go to upgrades, and this is a $50,000 upgrade to our council chambers. So I spoke with EJ today, and we're going to work towards getting a contract together and getting this stuff ordered. EJ confirmed that a lot of it was not back ordered. A lot of the electronical stuff out there today is, but this stuff is available for us. So I hope to get that together in November. Hopefully get it installed by the end of the year at this point. So it's moving much slower than I hoped, but we're working on that. And related to that is agenda software, an agenda system that our city clerk worked so hard to put together an analysis of 7 different companies. And we've been able to meet with 1 thus far, and we need to meet with 2 more, and then hopefully come in November with a recommendation for agenda software. And you're going to really like this. You've seen it, you're familiar with it if you watched the Hollister Council meeting or a County Board of Supervisors. It's great software, and it's great for indexing and record keeping when the day is over, when the meeting is done. So we're ready to go with with ordering the equipment and then moving forward with the installation of the cameras and new systems in our chamber. We had a lot of concerns last week about a chicken living in a certain car, and we had code enforcement go out. He's been out there more than once. He explained to me that our city code allows a person to own 6 chickens, and it doesn't say where they can own them, just so it's not 60 feet from a residential building. So his report to me on the welfare check of the hen was to be in good shape. And from there, we had to hand it off to the sheriff and the SPCA. And I asked the sheriff again for another report on on what he calls Chicken Gate, and apparently he was unable to receive one. So I'm sorry that I don't have a more clear update on that. If I have one by Friday, or as soon as I get one, I'll share it with you from the sheriff, because there are penal codes that he can enforce, that our code enforcement can enforce, related to humane treatment of animals. But as I said, the chicken seems to be in good shape. That doesn't make it okay, and we're still pursuing it. So I just wanted to touch base on that, because we had, I think, 3 comments at our last council meeting. And with that, that's all I've got to say, except for all these other items on the agenda. So, council, if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you very much. Well done. Vice Mayor Flores, questions, comments, concerns?
Questions or concerns? Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Freeman?
Thank you. Thank you, Don, for the excellent report. I'm looking forward to having the new equipment in the council chambers. I think it'll be a great addition and a big help to all of us, especially the new software, which I think will make record keeping and all that type of stuff infinitely superior to where it is now. And so thank you for doing all that. I have no comments about chickens. That's just beyond my area of expertise.
Thank you. Shout out to EJ. Thanks for volunteering and working with the city manager on getting the council chambers up to speed. Long time coming to get us into, I don't know, maybe the 2000s. Very much looking forward to November 16th and the contracts being awarded. A little bit intergovernmental. The Gavilan College comment was about Hollister's campus. And what else? I think that's it. Oh, shout out to all of the fire crews that were on site at the school. The school got an A+ for the role that they played in it from our fire chief, Bedola. We even had a volunteer firefighter show up from Santa Clara County. We had Cal Fire Pacheco, Cal Fire Aromas, Hollister Fire, our Engine 14, a volunteer firefighter. It was amazing how quickly everybody jumped on it, and that whole mutual aid was absolutely amazing. Same with the transformer on 4th Street. PG&E came out quickly. Our firehouse was there. Code enforcement, thanks Rich Brown for being there and not commenting on my coffee or saying that it was good coffee. I appreciate that. And level 1 private security was on site as well. And everybody worked really great together. It was nice to see all of the all for one group. Don, amazing presentation. Thank you very much. Looking forward to hearing more on animal control and chickens. Councilmember Freeman, did you have another comment?
Yes, I did. I'm sorry. I forgot the one that I really wanted to talk about the most, and it's about the PG&E transformers and everything. You know, PG&E is under the gun by the PUC and by the state because of a lot of reasons. And one of the things they have to do is improve the grid. And I think our grid in our town is probably in the bottom half or bottom third of the entire grid, and it really needs upgrading. And I would encourage city managers and city management to talk with Ms. Arnold and ask her to see about improving our grid, where we have let's say a 2,000 amp transformer. Maybe we need to replace it with a 3,000 amp transformer or something else, because one of the things the state is going to do is we're going to move into electrification process where more and more heating and other issues are going to be taken care of by electric. electricity, and that's going to put an even bigger burden upon the grid. So we are going to need an improved grid within our town and out of the town to accommodate the loads. And that's not even counting electric cars, which are going to put another 50, 60 amps per building on the grid. So we're going to need to upgrade our grid. And I can suggest also that we look into having, excuse me, PG&E bury the utilities under the ground. It might be better that way, and it'd certainly be safer for things like at the school, 4th Street, where we had all these problems. Thank you.
Thanks for that. I also spoke with Jenna, and she's trying to be really proactive for her service area, which is vast, which Don said. And this is that you bring up a great comment, because she is looking for ways to clean up the system to prevent things like that. We did speak about undergrounding our services also. So more conversations that we can have with her to get on PG&E's radar for San Juan, the better. So thanks for having those conversations and inviting her to contact all of the council members, Don. Do we have any public comments on the city manager's report?
Yes, I have Jackie Morris Lopez.
Sorry. Go ahead, Jackie. Thank you. Welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Jordan and the rest of the city council members. Thank you, City Manager Mr. Reynolds. I think that was a really informative report. I appreciate all the detail that you gave us. I had a comment or question about the conversation you had with the PG&E representative for our area. You said that she explained maybe perhaps one of the reasons that we had the transformers blow up was debris and not having enough rain to wash them out. So you didn't mention whether or not she had said that that was her PG&E's responsibility to clean out the debris. It would make sense to me as a community member to really know where the liability is on the upkeep and the maintenance of situations like that if there is debris that's caught on top of the transformer. My other comment would be, as a concerned citizen as well, the chicken gate situation. I feel like that's just the tip of the iceberg with that situation. The chicken, for me, as a community member, is the least of the worries with that situation. It's more about a homeless man that has been living on our streets for the better part of 3+ years. And if the city can actually look at that situation, not just the chicken living in a car that's well kept, it's a person living in a car on our streets for 3 years. And what sort of code violations and how can we help this gentleman find transitional housing? I think living in vehicles on our streets is not transitional housing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other comments?
No, there are no other hands raised.
Thank you very much. Reports from city council representatives to regional organizations and committees. Vice Mayor Flores.
Yes, I attended a California League of Cities conference in Sacramento, and it was very informative. Got a lot of information, some excellent speakers. The first speaker was the Paralympic ski champ. Her name is Bonnie St. John. She only has one, and she's a gold medalist, I believe. And the other one was a Latino who was a janitor for Pepsi, and came up with a great idea. Went from janitor to being one of the senior vice president, and he's now retired. His name is Richard Montañez, and he's the one that discovered the flaming hot Cheetos. And his story was really heartwarming. I mean, I had tears to my eyes listening to him. And I attended a AFCO meeting and a CMAP meeting, and also had a webinar with Jimmy Panetta, and he brought us up to date on what's happening in our area. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Freeman?
Yes, thank you. Last week I attended a NAMBAG meeting, and the entire meeting was devoted to subject we'll be talking about in a few minutes here, basically RENA numbers and things like that. I might add that every community in the Tri-County region is basically having the same discussion, same argument, if you will, on the various impacts and responsibilities that these new regulations are going to put upon us. And so I guess bottom line is we're not alone. Also, I attended the intergovernmental meeting a couple of weeks ago. Went fine. We will be talking about animal control. I think we were also scheduled to talk about Gavilan College. We were going to ask Dr. Rose to speak, but I read in the newspaper where she resigned a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of days ago. So I doubt that she will be speaking.
She is coming.
She is. Oh my
She
gosh.
is coming, yes.
Oh,
Yes.
good
Yep.
for her.
Yeah, absolutely. And she is also bringing another staff member, and I'm sorry, I forget who it is, but yes, she will be there.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And with animal control, we also brought that up at the ad hoc safety committee meeting to agendize that and bring it forward to a future meeting, working with the city of Hollister and San Benito County. I also attended a Water Association meeting, and we're now on rationing voluntarily, and Sean Novak anticipates it going to a mandatory, but we'll wait to hear more about that when he hears and passes it down to us, or when we get word from the state. That's all I have. Any public comment? Questions from the public on any of the meetings that we attended? Can you unmute yourself, please? Thank you.
Mayor, there are no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Public hearings, an introduction of an ordinance amending section 11-29-010 to delete reference to second units, repealing section 11-04-050, and adding a new section 11-04-050 to the San Juan Bautista Municipal Code to conform with the state regulations relating to accessory dwelling units, which is exempt from CEQA. I'm guessing because our assistant city manager, Brian Fouch, has headphones on and has shown himself, he's going to be speaking on this.
That is true.
Welcome, take it away.
Yes, thank you. So this is the second public hearing that the city council has had, and I have to say that if anybody has any trouble hearing me, please let me know, because I've had trouble with this phone jack before previous meetings. So is everybody okay with hearing me?
We're doing good. You're doing
okay, good. All right, good. So yes, this is the second public hearing, and I think that the ordinance presented to City Council this evening is improved through the redraft. The ordinance reformatted the ordinance and strengthened some of the provisions with respect to historic resources, and incorporated some other provisions related to privacy between second resident or the accessory dwelling units and the adjacent residential areas. So we'll go through that here. So I'll share my screen, I think, here. And pick the right one here. Here we go. All right. So let's start this here. I don't know why it's not letting me. Oh, am I frozen?
We can hear
You
you.
start,
Oh, you can hear me. My
can-
screen was frozen, sorry.
oh, there we go.
Okay, good. So I'm going to start the slideshow from the beginning here. So as you know, this information was presented previously at the previous public hearing on September 21st. And based on the comments received by the City Council in a number of areas, it was returned for first reading again. So this, as I said, is a new public hearing, and as if we hadn't had a public hearing previously. So we have a definition for accessory dwelling units in the government code. It's defined differently from the secondary dwelling unit ordinance that we currently have. It's more permissive by far. The current and proposed ordinances are supported by our general plan program. Nonetheless, we still have a good support in our general plan, even with the magnitude of changes that are being proposed. So this state laws are not new. It's our ordinance that's relatively new. The state law currently supersedes our regulations, hence the need to establish our own ordinance and attempt to respond to the local context in doing so. State law gives us the opportunity to design our own objective design standards, and what we've done here in the ordinance is try to carefully define our objective standards as consistent with our historic resource preservation policies, standards, and regulations. And so what I've done in this latest iteration is to beef up the definition of ministerial approval, because it seems that the mandatory approvals hinge on the word ministerial, and also require that we look at only objective standards. And so I've also referenced what I believe are objective standards in Chapter 6 of our design guidelines, and put those in our definition so that HCD, when they review this ordinance, will know what our intent is right away. The other thing that I've done in this ordinance is kept a lot of the text clean, where I've referenced ministerial approval, the San Juan Bautista design guidelines, our historic resources, and our historic districts in several sections. I've taken those references in the ordinance and placed them in a section of the ordinance so that they are confined to those sections rather than throughout the ordinance. And I think it works a lot better that way. It's, I think, a lot clearer. Again, as before, our design standards include, but are not limited to, these areas where we can have design standards. And then we can charge impact fees. We can charge connection fees, for accessory dwelling units. And we can't have ADUs used for short-term rentals. You'll see that on the next, another agenda item on the agenda this evening. We can go beyond the statutory minimums and encourage more liberal use of our regulations to further the construction of ADUs. And in one case where there was a concern about non-conforming or the use of converted accessory dwelling units, we have walked that back a little bit. And you'll see that later on in the presentation. So it's our intent to use our ADUs, and you heard some reference to SB 9. When and if the state does end up enabling people to split their lots, they will be able to put a second unit and another accessory dwelling unit on those separate parcels. And so we're really looking at densification of the city's landscape in that regard. And I think that is the concern that many local governments have with respect to SB 9. So ADUs are, of course, any district, including the mixed use district. And we can apply objective standards, as I said before, mandates automatic approval for ADUs that meet these standards, 8,000 square foot or smaller, less than 16 feet in height with 4-foot setbacks gets an automatic pass. But we believe that these are the rest of the zoning standards that apply to accessory dwelling units. No minimum lot size, coverage requirements are dropped, so there is a lot of flexibility built into the ordinance and the law. So what we have here is accessory dwelling unit subject to mandatory approval in our ordinance. I've added where a accessory dwelling unit is located within a historic district or identified as an automatic resource, and they meet the objective standards of Chapter 6 of the City Design Guidelines, then that gets them a mandatory approval. So again, we're sort of sticking to our guns here with respect to the need to have mandatory approval. This class of ADUs comply with our objective design standards. And we'll have to make that case strongly with HCD when we submit this for review. And the same thing is true for junior accessory dwelling units. We want these standards in Chapter 6 to apply where there is a mandatory approval. Let's see here. So here you have some standards where these standards have been revised again to carefully call out the requirement for accessory dwelling units to meet our historic resource standards or design guidelines. And here there was some concern during the last meeting that we weren't going far enough to look at the design of individual units, accessory dwelling units relative to adjacent land uses. And so I thought that in taking a section of the existing ordinance that we have with respect to some of the pertinent architectural features of buildings within that can be allowed to be constructed within side yards or rear yards, that we reference these standards as required for ADUs. So they won't be able to extend. The side yards and the rear yards for some of these units will be very small, 4 feet, foot less than usual. And we just simply don't believe that it's necessary to put these fireplaces, bay windows, similar architectural features within that setback, given the narrow nature of those. And I've also added a section that carries the open stairways, landings, and second floor decks into this prohibition being located within side or rear yard setback areas. And so these are new standards that were not in the previous iteration based on those comments. And you see here this reference in the ordinance to this section 1104-070. There is a correction here. It's supposed to read notwithstanding subsection B 2 of this section, which would be a previous section that does not apply to this particular. So that's an error. Let's see here. So here we have some standards, and these standards, by the way, apply in single-family residential districts. And so for those that apply in multifamily districts, we're being more permissive here than the state law requires. We're saying that ADUs can be attached, they can be detached, they can be attached to the primary structure, they can be detached and attached to each other, they can be put on top of each other if people want, provided in this case, and I've added this, I'm going to add this to recommend this be added to the ordinance that goes forward for second reading, that where they're attached to each other and placed on top of each other, the setbacks have to be consistent with those that would be required for the primary structure in those districts. And again, in the mixed-use zones, we will, especially because our historic district is within the mixed-use zone, we want these guidelines, our design guidelines, to apply. So again, as before, nothing has changed. We still want San Juan Bautista local concerns to be referenced in the ordinance. And so what I've done in this revision is I've placed all of the design standards in sections 1104-160 and 1104-170, so that they'll be in one place rather than throughout the ordinance, so that if someone wants to read about design standards and how they apply, they will go to this one particular section. And here we have design standards that apply everywhere, the same requirements that are elsewhere with respect to automatic resources and historic districts are found here, and also the prior section with respect to the matching of the primary structure with the ADU with the primary structure is here. And then there was some concern that we were giving too big a break to non-conforming accessory dwelling units or accessory dwelling units that were converted. And so we have made sure that those are included. So here in the design standards for historic districts, I call out specifically in this revision those aspects of accessory dwelling units that we want to call out as key elements for consistency with respect to our historic standards, our design guidelines. And they are these provisions or these elements referenced in sections 1 through 6 primarily. And this is right out of our design guidelines. And so again, I think it strengthens our argument that these are objective standards. And I think that concludes the staff presentation with respect to ADUs. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Council members, questions, comments, concerns. Vice Mayor Flores.
No comments or concerns. The only comment I have is good work. Good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Freeman.
Yes, thank you, Brian. Excellent presentation. I have a few comments. A lot of the new laws that are taking place do take away from our ability to control zoning and what our town will look like. The increased RENA numbers have the ability to change our town for the worse if we let it. And this, so I think we need to pass this ADU ordinance, because I personally would rather see a denser population within the confines of the town and still have it a walkable town rather than have another 50, 60, 70 brand new units either north or south of town off of 129 or excuse me, First Street, or going up the canyon or whatever. Another subdivision I just don't think helps our density. It doesn't help our town out. We have a walkable town. We have a lovely town. People like to go from restaurant to bar and bar to restaurant, and it's all very doable, and it makes it for a very very enjoyable living and visiting experience. So I want to keep that, and I think the best way to do that and still have a chance of obtaining our arena numbers is to do the ADU ordinance. So I am in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this was a great go around on this one, and I had just actually I think they were answered in the presentation. Thank you. I'm good with where we are now. I'm gonna now open it the public hearing. Deputy City Clerk, are there any public comments?
No, Mayor, I don't see any hands raised. Mayor, you're muted.
I have
Right.
one raised hand.
Thank you.
Oh, now yes, there is a raised hand. EJ Sabathia.
Thank you. Thank you, EJ. Welcome. Please unmute yourself. You have 3 minutes. Actually, it's a public hearing. Have at it.
So I can just talk all night?
Go for it, man.
Yeah, that's not me. My only concern, Brian, or anybody who has had insight onto how this was written, are we at all concerned that the powers that be fight back and deny where we have tried to be specific in this ordinance?
We're not, well, yes, we're concerned because we want these provisions to pass muster. And we will be preparing a robust argument to HCD. We'll attach our design guidelines. We'll attach our regulations regarding historic resources. We'll attach our planning documents that make it mandatory for people who want to construct and improve properties in San Juan Bautista to comply with these guidelines. And so, you know, we're going to pull out all the stops on those arguments. Now, whether we're successful, we don't know. We've been warned that we won't be, but we're of course compelled based on the strength of our policies and the nature of our historic resources here. So what will happen is that if the HCD doesn't like what we've done, is they will kick it back to us with specific comments requesting change. And you know, at that point, we will have to consider whether to bite the bullet. And I have a feeling that based on the resources that the city has to establish precedent in these areas, that if we're not successful with our arguments, that we will have to make some revisions. But that doesn't mean that we need to take a step back in the first go around. So we're prepared for that.
Okay, and my only comment to that is that it seems like we're prepared to go down fighting the good fight, but in the meantime, and until you get a successful resolution passed through all of this, the door is wide open, correct?
Oh, you mean regarding the ability to construct ADUs now?
Yes.
Yes, that's true. And as a matter of fact, we have a few
Okay.
that we've been talking to. So.
Okay, I just want to make sure people really understand that while we're really trying to take the time and get what we want, the more time we take and the more specific we try to be, the more wide open things are in the meantime.
That's true.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Brian, as you said, if there's no ordinance, the ADUs can go up as high as 1,200 square feet.
Yes.
Yeah, so the sooner the better. I absolutely agree with this.
Although I do have to say that most of the people that we talked with are not planning larger units. They're planning the smaller version that makes it possible for them to escape through. That's not the right word. To process their permits without any discretionary review. So those are the 800 square foot units.
Right.
The smaller versions.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that. I'm now going to, unless there are any other hands raised, I am now going to close the public hearing.
Yes, I have Jackie Morris Lopez.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Jackie. Welcome. You have time.
Okay, thank you once again, Mayor Jordan. So my question regarding the redo, Brian had mentioned something about the ADUs could be detached, attached, and also one on top of the other. So my concern is these would be like 2-story ADUs then?
Could be, yes.
Okay, and so would you consider as to location, say if there's a neighborhood and there's homes that are not 2-story, would there be consideration as to where these 2-story ADUs be attached in concern?
Yeah.
For, I mean, you're gonna limit to location of where the 2-story ADUs could be considered?
Well, in the revision, with the permission of the mayor, the revision does have a new section that says that where it's primarily or predominant, used to say predominantly, but I changed it to say 50% because predominantly is an ambiguous term, and I wanted to make it more explicit and objective. And so the provision says that where there are more than 50% of one-story buildings surrounding these accessory dwelling units that are on top of each other, that they or that potential exists, that they have to be not more than 16 feet in height. So that should solve that problem. Where the predominant design characteristic in the neighborhood is 1-story. And then where they are allowed to be on top of each other, they have to comply with the multifamily design or the setback standards in the district. So we're not giving them a break. They have to meet those standards as if they were the principal unit.
And you've outlined exactly where they're primarily more than 50% single, floor dwellings, then they would perhaps not be considered in that area if they met the metrics that it's more than 50%, non-2-story buildings, correct?
No, we haven't mapped that out.
Okay, and then someone mentioned the increased RENA number. I think it was Councilman Freeman. You may have also, Brian. So when you say increased RENA numbers, so we now are allowed more housing in our city? Because I think that was one of the concerns that came up at the last council meeting when you were asked to go back to the drawing board and redo this, is that there was a question and a concern about, well, how many more structures? I know that we all know why this is happening, shortage of affordable housing, shortage of housing. We're up against a rock and a hard place for our state government to allow these to go through. But our question, a lot of us had questions, and I was not the only one bringing this up, is where are we as far as what we need to meet our RENA quota? Has anyone come up with that figure yet? I mean,
we haven't been told what our local number is, what our San Juan Bautista number is.
So the comment that Mr. I believe Sabatha made that, right now, unless we get something on the books, we're all in agreement that then we can allow things to go according to our codes and what the state has mapped out for the ADUs. But also the concern is we also need to have some data, like how much more development in the ADUs can we actually allow. And once we have that number, then can you use that number as far as the actual allowance of these ADUs, or are we in conflict of not letting everyone build one that wants one as long as they meet the codes and the ordinance?
Well, the RENA numbers have never been mandatory. They are an objective. They're built into our housing element policies and our goals, our programs, but they're not mandatory. If we don't make our RENA numbers, we're not required to do something specific to reach them. And similarly, if we're over our RENA numbers, we're not then exempt from the ADU ordinance that would create more units than currently could be programmed otherwise. So irrespective of the RENA numbers and how they're used or calculated, ADUs under the state law would continue to be permitted.
So
and that is not affected by
so
the
there,
RENA numbers.
it just seems so conflicting and confusing. We have these guidelines, but what I'm interpreting is pretty much as a city, as a small city, we could become very dense and very quickly, and anyone that wants to put these in can, as long as they meet requirements. And at the same time, you're saying that the state is making these more attractive and easier to construct. So, it's just very confusing to me. It seems like we have no control. We have this ordinance that you're proposing tonight to the city council to pass. We're all feeling the pressure. But really, in the end, it just seems like we're going to lose all the aspects of what our town is now. It will be forever changed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Jackie. Yeah, it's we're between a rock and a hard place, and our numbers are I mean, we can be oversaturated. Correct, Brian?
Yep. But we do know, yeah, we do know that our infrastructure can accommodate what might be coming. We don't know what the implication is of SB 9 relative to the ability of someone to, let's say you have an existing single family home and you can parcel it into two, and then potentially you've got 4 units on that site that used to have 1. So we just don't know. It's a landscape that we're not familiar with. And there's really, unfortunately for everyone, very hard to predict what will happen.
Mm-hmm. And if we don't do something, something will be done for us.
Correct.
Okay, do we have any more public comment?
No, Mayor, there are no other hands raised.
Thank you very much. So this is the first reading of the ordinance. What's the wish of the council? Either we bring it back as an action item in November, or we call for a vote tonight without having 2 of our members here. Vice Mayor Flores?
I say we take action.
Council Member Freeman?
I'll go along with Caesar on that.
I agree. So I'll ask for a motion to pass this ordinance.
So moved.
So I'll second it.
Thank you very much.
Ready?
Hang on one second. Sorry. Okay, go ahead. Roll call vote, please.
Yes, Councilmember Edge is excused tonight. Councilmember Flores,
Aye.
Councilmember Friels is excused. Councilmember Freeman,
Aye.
Mayor Jordan.
Aye.
With 3 members of the council being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 3-0-2 with 2 absent.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Brian, for all you have done on that. Thank you, Don, for all the work that you have put into this. Thanks to the Planning Commission and the HRB and everybody else who had their fingers in the pot to get this passed sooner than later. Very long time in coming, and I hope I can speak for all of the council members. We really appreciate all the work that you have all done on this. Thanks for finally bringing it to closure.
I'm sorry, I hate to jump on something that's not my item, but Deb, wasn't this a first reading or an adoption?
Yes, first reading.
Can we bring it to a vote to pass the ordinance if there were no changes to it?
So there were substantial changes, and so it was put on the agenda as the introduction.
So it has
Okay.
to come back.
Change that now.
Consent in November. Right.
So it has to come back.
So
Consent.
No problem.
can we put it on if we're having a special meeting in October? Nope, it has to be at a regular city
Regular
council
meeting.
Okay, sorry, folks. We're bringing this to back for its second reading and approval, hopefully.
I think the motion that passed was also an adoption rather than the first reading.
Right, so we're going to have to restate the motion as a first reading and bringing it back to the council on the November 16th meeting?
Yeah.
November 16th.
Yeah.
So,
Back is consent.
sorry, Vice Mayor Flores, if you can restate your motion.
Yes, there's a motion to bring this to first reading of this ordinance. And bring it up at the next meeting or second reading.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Freeman, are you still seconding it?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Roll call vote, please.
Yes, Councilmember Edge is absent. Councilmember Flores,
Aye.
Councilmember Friels is absent. Councilmember Freeman, excuse me.
Aye.
Mayor Jordan.
Aye.
With 3 members of the council being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 3-0-2 with 2 absent.
Thank you again. Thank you all again. We can bring this as a consent item then next month.
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you all very much. 5D. Discuss solutions of the city's wastewater problems and adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Juan Bautista accepting the sewer rate study, authorize the Proposition 218 mailing to ratepayers, and set a date for a public hearing. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council and community. This is another conversation about our water and about our wastewater. It's a conversation that's been going on for at least 18 months. And this meeting was specially noticed as a conversation about our water and the options and the decisions we're making in order to comply with the USDA public meeting notice requirements. And I thought I saw Esther de la Cruz in our attendance today, and she's representing the USDA. Maybe she wants to talk at a later time. So to that end, when we distributed our packet, I included all the slides from our October 7th town hall meeting, which was a complete overview of the process we've gone through with the EPA and with the water board since approximately February 25th, 2020. when we were informed that we were going to be fined for violating our NPDES National Pollution Discharge Permit, and that we were going to enter into an administrative order on consent, which we did in August with the EPA, with the EPA. We immediately issued a change order in February to our wastewater master plan consultant, Stantec, and they prepared something called a preliminary engineers report, which is a requirement for the USDA funding application. And that PER has been reviewed by the USDA. And in fact, we had to split it in two so that we had a wastewater PER and a water PER. And what the PER does in a nutshell is it analyzes all the different options that the city has for coming into compliance with its NPDES permit. What that regulates is the quality of water that we send to the creek right now, our effluent water. And so the question is, do we upgrade and change our existing facility, or do we look at other options? So we came up with an objective way, a matrix of evaluating 3 options, and 2 of them were to upgrade our existing plant, which is obsolete and old and needs a lot of investment. And one method recommended a reverse osmosis process that would remove salts from the water before it was effluent water to the creek. And then the third process is the one that we're familiar with, and that's the force main sending our sewer water to the city of Hollister. And to that end, we initiated design of that project in February, and by the end of October, we should have 30% drawings completed. And in fact, we're being closer to 65% drawings completed by the end of October. We approved the draft CEQA document today submitted by EMC to the city. And so Brian's been working hard with EMC on that, and we'll get our public comment started on our mitigated negative declaration for CEQA, but it's a CEQA plus process. And the CEQA plus process means that our consultant, EMC, has been in touch with the USDA and other federal funding sources to make sure that we're meeting the NEPA, National Environmental Protection Act regulations, as well as the California Environmental Quality Act question. So all these 3 pieces are coming together at the same time. We had about 14 people in attendance at our town hall meeting, which is pretty good. We noticed that meeting by putting a flyer in everyone's utility bill. And then we noticed this meeting by actually publishing an advertisement in the local paper, and then publishing our public hearing notices as we usually do at the library and post office and City Hall. So with that, we have all this information collected here at this link, which is easy to find, and including the video of the October 7th Town Hall meeting at our San Juan Bautista website. It's an alert, so as you go to the website, you'll find it easy to find all of our water information that we've collected over the last 18 months, our water master plan, our sewer master plan, our PER documents, our soon to be our draft negative declaration document. So, pardon me, that's a review of the 18-month process that we've been going through. We've selected this compliance project of this force main to Hollister. And now that we're at that critical moment identified in our MOU. September 7th, Hollister agreed to accept our wastewater, and the MOU has a feasibility threshold about 1/3 through the process, for to ask ourselves, how much does the project cost, and is it feasible to complete the project? And so we're at that point now, and for that reason, the MOU includes a lot of cost estimates based on current fees at the city of Hollister and so forth, some of them negotiated, as we know. So that MOU then gave us the data to put together a rate study. And so on tonight's calendar, on this same item is Bartle Wells rate study. And we've chosen to come about a process where we do somewhat like a notice of intent. And it's a notice of intent to increase our sewer rates based on the rate study, So that's why the title to this agenda item is so long, because we want to have a town hall conversation about the USDA funding application. We want to introduce our rate study, and Eric is here. Eric Helgensen from Barlow Wells is here to present a few slides on the rate study and answer any questions related to that. And we also have attorney Mark Mandel, who you just heard, and he's an expert on the Prop 218 process. If we want to have any questions or concerns about that process, I have both of them here today. And if you like, I could bring up the October 7 slideshow if people have questions about any of the decisions that we've made over the past 18 months. So that's where we are tonight. This is our project as we know it. We have decided that this is the best course, the best path of travel for our sewer forest main, because it stays mostly on county roads and travels approximately 6 miles from San Juan to the Hollister treatment plant, ending over there by Mitchell Road and the Hollister treatment plant. One of the best things about this design is that it takes this course using a brand new existing pipe through Rancho Vista and goes out to Prescott Road, instead of crossing all of these farmlands where we would have had to acquire as many as 14 right-of-ways, different easements. Now we're going around and we're following Prescott Road, and this is True Leaf here on the left. They're one of our industrial users. And then this is the Coke lift station that sends Earthbound and Coke Farms domestic sewer water to our city through a pipeline up on Thomas Lane. What we're going to do is we're going to run our pipe right by these facilities so that none of that industrial water has to come to our town. So this is a transformational project. It's a little bit expensive, approximately $15 million, but it should be noted that the two projects to upgrade our existing facility were between $15 and $20 million as well. So no matter which of the projects we chose to comply with the EPA's orders, we're going to be spending about the same amount of money. But this project allows us to decommission our wastewater treatment plant, keep those ponds available and cleaned out in case there's an emergency and we need to send our water. We have an emergency backup for storage in case there's an earthquake or a terrible accident where the pipe breaks. We can use these ponds, keep them dry, they won't smell. The plant will be decommissioned only as much as we need to store wastewater there. Then coming over to the Hollister side, this is the way it's going to come into town on the Hollister side. Again, following Mitchell Road and coming through county roads, and then under 156, using an existing casing that's already there. You don't have to work with Caltrans at all. It's already there, heading right to the manhole here at the Hollister treatment plant. So we're not impacting any of Hollister's collection ability. We're bringing the wastewater right to them, and that's really reduced our costs. So that helps explain why the MOU and why this plant was so important to our rate study, because the lower we got the cost, the lower we could set our rates. Nonetheless, you'll see in Eric's slides that we haven't budgeted in the past 10 years or 15 years for large capital improvements to our wastewater treatment program. So that's why Eric's rate study is important to listen to and to see and to understand as we move forward. So with that, Eric, I've shared the ability for you to share your slides with the City Council. And I'll pause for a minute. Does anyone have any questions, or Esther, did you want to say anything if you're still with us? I haven't checked the participant listing. Yes, Esther's still here. I don't know if you want to say anything. I'll put you over on the other side. And Eric's going to bring up his slides. Okay. Are we okay to move forward? Are there any questions from the council, Mayor?
No, well, let's keep moving forward and we'll get all of our questions answered at the end. Thank you.
Go ahead, Eric. You're welcome.
Welcome, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you, Don. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. And today I'm here to talk about the water and sewer rate study, which focused on the sewer rate portion tonight, and talk about the process we went through to develop it and present the results of that study. there's a lot of great benefits, and now we get to talk about how we will pay for it. So the overall objectives of the study are to make sure that the enterprise is financially stable, that rates are sufficient to pay for the operating and revenue costs that the enterprise is going to incur. We want to make sure that the rates are compliant with all relevant laws. The main one governing the rates is Prop 218. And then to make sure that the rates are aligned with the city's objectives and keep the customers in mind, and try to make the increases as smooth and predictable as possible, recognizing that every time their rates do go up, it's unpleasant. So an overview of the rate study process. First, we collect the data, compile all the usage data, all the expenses, all the projected capital costs, develop a financial plan. The result of that financial plan, we identify the amount of revenue that will be needed from rates to make everything go to pay for all of the identified projects and the future maintenance. Once we identify that revenue requirement, we then allocate that allocate that so it can be equitably recovered from different customers and different customer classes. And finally, that those proposed rates that are developed are then noticed and adopted, going through the 218 process. This specific project began in 2020, and we've been doing a lot of work. I want to thank Dawn and Wendy and Dimitri and everyone on the project team for all the back and forth and feedback that have been provided. And as the project's gone on, collecting the data from the cost of this project, finalizing the MOU, and now it's all together into the result of the rates. So to keep the rates legally compliant, as I mentioned, 218 is a big part of that. You'll hear more from Mark, I assume, and he'll correct me if I misstate anything. But the key part of how 218 pertains to rates is that the revenues cannot exceed the cost of providing the service, and the revenues and the charges cannot exceed the proportional cost of the service provided. So that's why we do the cost allocation portion in the rate study, to make sure that we're having rates that are proportional. And finally, there's also the noticing requirement, where you must send out a notice to all the rate payers and property owners 45 days in advance of the public hearing of the rates. And the rates that you notice, those rates essentially act as a ceiling, so that the council may adopt rates up to the rates that are noticed in that 218 notice. If fewer than 50% plus one of the ratepayers protest, then the council, it will be at their discretion to then adopt the rates. So we looked at the water fund, and our recommendation for the water fund right now is to stay in a holding pattern. The revenues currently are sufficient to fund operations, and as there is also a regionalization project for the water enterprise. Once those costs and the charges from the county are known, then we would recommend going forward and doing the finalizing the rate study on the water side. But for now, until those major costs are identified and finalized, the revenues are sufficient to fund the operations. On the sewer side, there are some primary areas of focus that are driving our rate recommendation. The first, to pay for increasing operating expenses. As we've all heard in the news, inflation has been going up, and the cost of things are increasing. In addition to that, with the regionalization project, there will also be the rates that Hollister will charge for treatment. And so that will also add an additional amount to the operating expenses. As you've heard a lot about, capital projects are a huge component of what's driving the costs. And a big portion of the capital project is not generating rates to pay the full amount. It's generating rates that are sufficient to support the necessary additional debt financing to pay for those capital projects. We're targeting a minimum coverage of 1.25 as a debt service coverage, so having revenues are 1.25 times greater than the debt service once expenses are subtracted out. And we're projecting that your annual debt service will actually almost double to pay for this project. In addition to that, there will be a rate-funded portion of the project, which we're projecting will be about $2 million. So to focus just on the project, the regionalization project connecting to Hollister, the final assumed cost in our model is about, in our study is about $13 million. There was a reduction in from the original estimate of the connection fee of about $2 million. And then how the project is being paid for, as I said, there's about 1.5 million in cash funding, so revenue paid for from rates. An additional 6 million will be financed, and then currently we're assuming 5.4 million will come from grant funding. However, the city's been working diligently to identify new grant funding sources, and that number, there's a strong chance that could be larger when it's all said and done. So when all this is put together, what does it look like? The 5-year financial plan is shown in this graph. Each column represents the total expense that's projected in each year. And then the green line, it represents the projected revenue, and the dotted black line represents the reserves. So our goal is to maintain the prudent reserve level so that the city is able to respond to emergencies. Also, having prudent reserves allows lower cost financing, and as the city, as the enterprise needs quite a bit of financing, that's also very important part of that equation. So what we're doing with the recommended rates is ramping up the revenues. You'll see that in the first couple of years, we're going to draw down that reserve a little bit, and we're ramping up the revenues to be able to support the increased capital costs and the increased operating costs that we're anticipating. And as you can see in those columns, the portion that is the Hollister treatment charges comes online, and the amount of debt service increases, which is shown in the little larger yellow column in that final year. So the rates are building as gradually as we can to be able to support where the enterprise needs to go in fiscal year 25-26. To do that, on the top of the slide, you see the additional revenues in each year that we've identified as necessary, and what that impact is to the single family rate. So the first year, the single family residential rate will be increasing about $12, and that will keep increasing by larger increments each year until the city has enough revenues sufficient, and then the increase will drop down to basically just be inflationary. I'll show the rates in a couple more slides, and I just want to again reiterate that the rates we're going to recommend are essentially the maximum amount, and the council, if more grants come in or other things, will be able to adjust if necessary. We had one recommendation to the sewer rate structure. We're recommending that the commercial volumetric rate move from 3 strength-based tiers to 1 single volumetric tier. The reason for this is twofold. The first being that the charges from Hollister will be based on volume and not discern between strength. And second, that the industrial customers are going to be required to keep the strength of their discharge within certain limitations, and if they're exceeding that, they'll need to have some sort of pre-treatment to bring it within those boundaries. And so that's why we recommended one single charge to reflect that the city isn't incurring additional costs now because of the additional strengths of the discharge. So the proposed rates, currently the monthly residential rate is $83.61, and we're proposing that rate increase in the first year to $95.62, and then increase evenly to the final amount of $148.75 for monthly residential sewer rates by fiscal year 25-26. To show what your rates will look like compared to other utilities in the next year, I've included some regional agencies and some other agencies from the Central Coast that have also had to incur some fairly large capital expenses. And the goal of this slide is not to diminish the rate increases that are necessary, but to demonstrate that it is common for utilities that do have to incur large capital expenses from time to time, and your rates are not abnormal for utilities that are experiencing those issues. As Don also referenced, the wastewater treatment not being a part of the rates. This slide shows your actual rates in the blue line, and then what your rate would be just if it kept pace with inflation, which is the orange line. And your rates have basically stayed with inflation, fully funding your operations. It's lagged a little bit behind recently, and so as I mentioned, the goal of this rate, so you're catching up, making sure you can pay for operations, and then the big increase is now you have to fund a wastewater treatment solution to avoid penalties and comply with the requirements that Don talked about. So the next steps for the study in the rate process are going to be mail the 218 notices, and then have that notice period of 45 days. After that, there'll be a public hearing, and then the council will be able to adopt the noticed rates if there's not a majority protest. And that concludes my portion of the presentation, and I'll leave it up to Don to answer questions now, or to go through the rest of the topics and then come back to questions.
Thank you, Eric. I'd like Mark to have a chance to talk about the Prop 218 process. I don't know when the last time our city did that, if it's been recently, but that's why we have Mark here. He's an expert from the Wellington Law Firm. Mark, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. The resolution that's before you today is setting a public hearing for December 14th. At least 45 days prior to that public hearing, the city would send out notices to all the wastewater customers. The notice would include the information about the proposed rates, information about the public hearing, and information about filing protests. The rates that are being proposed is actually a 5-year schedule. And the reason why we do it that way is that way you'll get jurisdiction up front by virtue of your Prop 218 hearing in December to raise the rates up to the amount that's shown in the rate table for each of the next 5 years. And my understanding from speaking with Don is that's something that the the Department of Agriculture and some of your other potential funding agencies are really interested in seeing, because they don't want to give you money for a capital project unless you can show them that you have the capacity to raise rates that will cover your operating expenses once you put the new project online and start making payments to Hollister for their treatment services. So once the notice goes out, the city clerk will accept by mail or drop off written protests from property owners and from wastewater customers. There is an exhibit to the resolution, which includes the rules for what constitutes a formal written protest. And if you receive written protests from 50%, I'm sorry, from a majority of your customers or from a majority of your affected property owners, you won't be able to increase your rates. But if you don't receive that sort of majority protest, then following the December 14th meeting, you'll have the ability to raise your rates up to the amounts that were shown in the notice. Really, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. I did want to close with some optimism. We are looking at more than the USDA. We are looking at the State Clean Water Act, the State Drinking Water Act. Also looking at Community Development Block Grant. We've identified hopefully about $3.5 million available from CDBG. And in bringing on California Consulting, we've recently also applied for Prop 1 money for groundwater money to help with our well system. So we're looking for funding not just for sewer, but for the water system as well. And we're looking from as many as 5 different sources. We wait with great anticipation that something will happen in terms of an infrastructure bill to be passed in Washington. Who knows if that money would be available to us in time, but that's another source that we're looking at. And in last contact with Congressman Panetta's office, our $1 million earmark is still on the table. If they just get their act together and adopt a budget, maybe we get some help in that regard too. So I wanted to assure the council that we're working on every direction we can. We have a good team with Dimitri, pardon me, as our municipal advisor, working on a financial plan for the EPA that we're happy to share with any of our funding partners. But our goal is to get all of these ducks in a row within the next 2 months before the end of this calendar year, so that we get our financing organized in time to build this project. So I just wanted to end on that positive note and thank both Eric and Mark for being here today. Mayor, I'll leave it for you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Eric, for that presentation. Thank you, Mark, for giving us a rundown on Prop 218. Very much appreciated. Vice Mayor Flores, questions, comments, and concerns?
No comments or concerns.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt that. Councilmember Freeman.
Yes, I do have some comments. The rate increases for a disadvantaged family are going to be rather steep. And I would like to suggest a few other things. I'd like to take off $2 or $3 off the 95.62 proposed rates and drop that down and add it to the moderate strength and the high strength of volumetric rates. I'm fully aware that Hollister does not charge that, but it appears to me that some of the commercial and industrial users are getting a free pass on the rate increases, and we have about a population of about 45% who are under the federal poverty level, and we'll have a hard time keeping up. So I'm trying to look out a little bit for them. I'd like to kind of play with the rates and see if we can get to the same amount of money so that we're solvent and so we're good and we can pay our bills, and yet we can ease some of the pain for some of our residents. Thank you.
Absolutely great comment there. I don't have anything else. I don't have anything else on that. Thanks for those comments. Thanks for those comments, John. Go ahead, Mark.
If I could address the comment made by Councilmember Freeman.
Go ahead.
Unfortunately, we have limited ability to move the rates between the various customer classes. And the reason is that Prop 218 requires that we not charge any customer for an excess of the cost of providing them service. And my understanding is that what your consultant has done is they allocated your costs between commercial and residential, and then basically are charging the residential portion of the cost to your residential customers, or charging the commercial portion of your cost to the commercial customers. So, we can't move dollar amounts from residential to commercial without some pretty substantial additional study, which likely wouldn't result in in what you're looking for.
Okay, well, I'm not sure I completely want to accept that. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I'm not trying to argue with you, but I am sensing that the industrial users are getting a free pass in the fiscal year 2022, 23, 23, 24, et cetera. They're just getting a free pass, and we're going to have to keep on paying. So that really doesn't seem fair to me, and I'd like to challenge you to figure out a way to work that out.
Well, as to the specific rates on those specific classes of users, I would have to actually defer to Don or Eric, because I'm not familiar with what your cost structures are for your industrial users. But I guess my one recommendation would be that if the council wants to look at reducing at shifting costs, shifting rates between the customer classes, that rather than do that as part of an adoption of this resolution tonight, you direct staff to come back with a new resolution and a new rate structure after they've done some studying to see what can be done within the confines of requirements of 218. Because we can't just shift it without a study and explanation.
Yes, and if you'd like, I can weigh in on how we came up with those, how we derived the rates we have currently. As you are sending your treatment function to Hollister, a lot of what drives the differential between standard, moderate, and strength is treatment costs. And so as those are not going to be incurred by the city anymore, there's not really a cost driver for those for that differential. And so as you're basically operating a collection system and then paying a volumetric rate to the city of Hollister, it's really flow of the discharge that's governing your costs. And so we allocated the costs between residential and commercial based on flow. And then what was recovered between the different strength charges based on all the different number of commercial customers in each category is now just being recovered in that single charge. And you'll see it's significantly higher than the previous standard strength charge, but it's a little bit lower than the highest strength charge, which only had a few customers, but the net recovered from commercial is still the same.
So then could we, instead of shifting it over to our industrial users, can we do a differentiation between fixed and low income and the rest of the community?
Unfortunately, Proposition 218 also won't allow us to do that because we're not allowed to charge any customer for more than their share of the costs. So if you reduce the cost that you're charging to low income, you aren't allowed to then increase the costs that you're charging to your non-low income customer base. So you'd have to somehow backfill that dollar amount, not out of increased rates on someone else, but out of general funds or some other available funds.
Understood. Thank you very much for that explanation. Okay, I'd like to now open it up to a public hearing. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns from the public?
I have Jackie Morris Lopez.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Jackie.
Thank you once again. And I just appreciate, I agree 100% with Councilman Freeman. I appreciate him asking those questions about the burden being shifted more to the commercial users in our area. I think this is a fair question. And the gentleman that stated he did not know what the rates were, I think it's behooving that you look into those rates for us. I think we need to have that information as a public. And like I said, I appreciate Councilman Freeman for bringing that question up or that concern. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment?
No, Mayor, I don't see any other hands raised.
Thank you very much. I'm now closing the public comment.
We have one in the corner.
Oh, just popped right up.
EJ
Okay,
raised his hand.
EJ Sabatia.
Thank you very much. Welcome, EJ. Please unmute yourself. There you go.
I had questions about what are the implications of not, like, say the citizens, banded together, decided not to do this. What are the implications of not passing this? My fear is that there's some sort of like recompense as far as us not coming up to code or some substandard, water service, status quo of what we've been doing right now. What are the consequences of not passing this? Understanding completely that the rate hike is severe, but there likely is some severe consequence of not doing this.
Thanks for that question. Don, do you want to take that one?
So, well, any number of scenarios can play out. If we determine that the compliance project that's on the table now is not feasible because we're unable to raise the rate sufficiently to pay for it, then we're kind of back to the drawing table with the EPA, and we're renegotiating a different compliance project and resetting the administrative order and consent. All the meantime, relying on an obsolete and very tired wastewater treatment plant that really suffered Sunday night, frankly, from the electrical currents and other issues going on. So we have that risk that we'll have a major failure the more we prolong this. In conversations with our partner, and some of you know our representative, Adam Howell from the EPA, he insists that we're taking the most cost-effective route towards compliance because we're not in a lawsuit. He's worked in other jurisdictions in California where rather than enter into an order of consent, they sued him. And 2 years later, and hundreds of thousands of dollars of attorney's fees, they were right back to the same place they were 2 years before when the city put up a fight. So this is, I believe, the path of least resistance and therefore the most efficient, cost-effective way to get into compliance. So if we don't pay now, we'll be paying later. And as our economy grows, paying later means paying more. So the cost of construction and materials and so forth was higher just 3 months ago than it is today. But certainly, if we go down another path, it takes another 18 months or 2 years, the cost will be higher. We have made a lot of effort and hired a team to get this done as soon as possible to meet that deadline of the December 2023. Even postponing this resolution tonight puts us in jeopardy of missing that December 31 deadline. So that makes me a little bit nervous as well. We're kind of at a breaking point right now here in October. We need to make some hard decisions and move down the road. Yes, we put ourselves in much greater risk if we don't go down this route sooner than later. That's just the feedback I have from the team that we're working with right now.
And to add on to that, we have tried fighting the good fight and getting our fines reduced and moving in any other direction. Our city attorney, we've consulted with outside attorneys. Don has met with the EPA and the State Water Resources Control Board with John and myself. And finally getting this MOU with Hollister moving forward. So this has been going on for years. We've had an issue for years, but we're kind of down to a crunch point. Either we go with this, or I don't know how bad it could get. But for now, we have the EPA and the State Water Resources Control Board on our side. And if we do it now, could be a little less expensive than putting it off until later. And that doesn't include the subsequent fines that could occur. Okay, so where do we go from here? We can pass this as a resolution. Sorry, John. I'm sorry, John. I looked down and didn't see you waving over there. Go ahead.
What I'd like to ask the several attorneys and Mr. Hegelson, can we pass this in theory only and then maybe come back and jiggle around with the rates a little bit to make them more equitable for some of our residents?
This resolution is instructing staff to give notice of the public hearing, and the notice would include the rates that are in the resolution. And once you've sent out that notice, you can charge lower rates than what you've proposed, but you can't increase any of the rates. Since you can't increase any of the rates, any change that you'd be making would have to be decreasing the total amount of money you're going to be receiving. And then also, to the extent you're not doing an across the board decrease, but just doing a decrease to one customer class, that could cause us problems under Proposition 218. So I'd recommend that you reach an idea or concurrence about what you're proposing before adopting this resolution.
So, Councilman Freeman, I also think that what you can do is come up with a program once this is all passed and in place, and if the rates are too difficult for lower income people in your city, then you can pass a program to supplement them from the general fund to pay their rates. And that keeps it out of the Prop 218. It's basically like a social program that you'll do, years from now when those rates come into effect.
And I'd like to just add on, if I may. As Mark stated, it's exactly correct that the rates that are noticed will be the ceiling, so the maximum rates that can be adopted. The final project costs are still going to be realized. Don is still working on identifying grant funding. That the conservative, probably likely low grant funding number right now is about $6,000 per customer, and that will likely go up. And if this if this doesn't move forward, that the city could miss out on that $5.5 million or more dollars. And I do think once the final amounts roll in, the city it would definitely make sense to review where the costs are and modify the final rates. But you have to build to that point, and all the rates right now are building to be able to fund the capital project at the end of the 5-year period. So it's crucial to stay on that schedule until the final costs come in. And then, as was stated by Mark, also our rates are based on a unbiased cost allocation. So to comply with the 218, and Deborah made a great point that if there was going to be mitigation between the classes, that would, you need to come up with some program from the general fund.
Thank you, Eric. Go ahead, John.
Okay, so let me take one more swing at this. Okay, so would it be possible for us to add $2 into each column, fiscal year 2021, 22, 23, 24, to the 1335, make it 1535, then make it 1735, then make it 1930? Could we do that tonight? And so we can get a little extra money out of the commercial people and ignore Hollister. The fact that they just charge for one thing, who cares? Trust me, Hollister's not the end all and be all of good governance. So I just like to add a little money to the commercial sewer rates on the fiscal years 21, 22 through 25, 26. Just a little bit of money. So, and maybe subtract $1 or $2 off the fixed monthly rate for residential.
The problem is
for everybody.
Right. The problem is that we don't have a report to support that rate structure, and we do have a support report which says that a different rate structure is appropriate. So it would be very difficult to defend that rate structure under the record we've created at this point. If there were additional information that were coming to your rate consultant that would cause him to look at a different way of allocating, that would be a different matter. But with the current allocation being the allocation we have, we just don't have we don't have the record to support a rate structure that's changed in the way you're describing.
I could come up with a record tomorrow. I could give me an hour at the computer and I can come up with a record and justifications. Whether they pass legal muster is another question.
Right. I think we would need something. We would need something a little more detailed than that coming from our expert rate and analyst. But also, I mean, the other thing is, if you came up with that tomorrow, that would still be too late to justify what we're doing today.
Okay.
And I think Deb is raising her hand.
Go ahead,
So
Deborah.
I have a question maybe I'm asking you, Mark. We have only 3 council members here today, and I think you need a majority vote for that. Do you need all 3 votes to approve this tonight?
No. Well, you need to have, if you have 3 members present, don't you need 3 votes to pass a resolution normally? There's no supermajority requirement in play here for this, because this is just proposing rates.
So that all 3 have to vote affirmatively, or one can vote negatively?
If I believe your normal rule for a normal resolution would be that if you have 3 members present, you need 3 members to pass a resolution.
Correct.
So that would be correct for this resolution as
Yes.
well.
Okay. I just wanted to warn them of that.
Okay, and it was my understanding too that the rates as they are listed now will pay for, theoretically, pay for the project. And we can't add more money to make more money, so to speak, to have a little pot over there for funding later on.
There has to be a nexus. There has to be a relationship. The whole point of Eric's work, if you looked at the tables in the back of the study, he's developed a nexus between the costs and the rates we're charging.
Yep.
I'm reading right off of his tables. I mean, I've studied them pretty hard.
Yeah. And also there's, these rates are based on the funding that we currently have. And as the Wallace Group spoke earlier, there's the potential for grant money there. And Don, you've already reduced it by $2 million, and there's lots of opportunity for potentially lowering the rates as we move further along.
Absolutely.
So this is the highest they would be.
And at 2.5% interest is factored in, and the loans we've been looking at from the revolving loan fund and hopefully from the USDA are much less than 2.5%. That's the going market funding. So that's the assumption that we don't get any help or any loans for this project. And we know that that won't be true. We'll get better financing than 2.5%.
So this Prop 218 is to ensure that we have monies to pay for this project moving forward as it sits.
Yeah, these rates were designed to allow you to fund both your capital costs and also your operating costs once this project comes online. Because what will happen is your operating cost structure will change. You'll have a reduction in operating costs because you'll no longer have your cost of running your existing plant, but then you'll have costs from Hollister of paying to use their plant. And so it winds up being a net increase in your costs. And
Right.
then on the capital side, in addition to the fact that you're raising some money to use as cash up front for projects, this also is anticipated to cover your cost of your debt service on, for any borrowing you do.
Okay. Any further comments, John or Cesar?
No.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate both of you gentlemen for weighing in for the community. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Mark. We appreciate everything that you have done. This is an amazing endeavor. One of many amazing endeavors that we've had tonight. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. What's the wish of the council? Move forward or not? I'll take a motion to accept this resolution or not.
I make a motion to accept the sewer rate study, authorize Proposition 218 mailing to ratepayers, and set a date for a public hearing.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Councilmember Edge is absent. Councilmember Flores.
Aye.
Councilmember Friels is absent. Councilmember Freeman.
Yes, but I still want to go back and look at the rates later on. But yes.
Mayor Jordan. Thank you.
Yes.
3 members of the council being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 3-0-2 with 2 members absent.
Thank you very much. Thank you again, Eric. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Don. We appreciate this.
Thank you, City Council. It's a bold move. That's not taking my.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay, moving right along. Action items. Adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Juan Bautista setting fees for short-term rental permits required by Municipal Code Section 3-9-400 and amending the fee for home occupancy permits required by the Municipal Code Section 11-01-090. Assistant City Manager, you have appeared again. I'm guessing you're taking this one.
Yes, I am.
Take it away.
Yeah, so you currently have in the municipal code chapter section 3-9 requiring short-term rental permits. However, there haven't been any procedures developed to implement those requirements. And so what's before you tonight is a couple of things, well, actually a few things. You have a supplement. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because the fee resolution recognizes that there could be, some implementation of the ordinance. And so what we've done with the fee resolution is we are, suggesting based on the cost of the safety inspections, housing code and fire code inspections, and planning permit processing for short-term rental permits, that there be a base fee, and that's going to be established as a as a base fee, and then from that, an hourly rate would be applied. The second part of this is that we have had some experience with home occupation permits, and our experience with that so far is that there are some home occupation permits that are relatively minor and really don't cost anything, if anything, to process because they are explicitly recognized in the ordinance as permitted. So we're recommending in the resolution that those permitted, the class of permitted home occupations be processed just with a simple business license fee that's currently required. And that if it gets more complicated and requires a conditional use permit, that the conditional use permit fee would apply. So in the proposed fee resolution that we have for home occupation permits, we have suggested that there be a tiered system put in place for those where a business license fee is required. If a home occupation complies with the operating standards in the ordinance, then you would apply a fee of $75, which is a nominal fee. And then if it requires a CUP, it would go up to $787.50, which is the normal fee for conditional use permits. And I think the problem that we're having is that many people are balking, even if they're permitted, they're balking at obtaining a home occupation permit, and we're not able to review those because they just don't come in. So we'd like people to come in, we'd like the opportunity to review those on a case-by-case basis. And the majority will not require a fee with the adoption of the fee resolution that we're proposing. So again, the base fee for short-term rentals will be $611 based on the hourly rate for fire code and housing code inspection and planning processing. And then there's the tiered rate for fees that I've described on home occupation permits. So that's the resolution that you have that we're recommending that you approve.
Very good. Thank you very much. Questions, comments, concerns, Vice Mayor Flores?
No comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Freeman?
Thank you. And thank you, Brian. About a year and a half ago, or maybe 2 years ago, I can't quite remember, I brought a proposal to the council and it was passed about taxing short-term rentals, and that was kind of the start. And I'm glad to see that you've taken it several steps further. I think it'll be a good program for the city. It's needed. We need to get those short-term rentals rounded up. I know in other cities, like Pacific Grove and such, and Carmel, this is a real controversial issue. Everyone wants to be a short-term rental broker or whatever it is, or a purveyor, I guess, and they actually have lotteries on who gets to do it and stuff. So thank you, Brian, for doing all this. I'm in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have we identified all of our short-term rentals?
No, that'll be the second step.
Okay.
Once we get the ordinance in place, the problem has been that, well, once we identify them, what do we do at that point? So now, we know a little bit about what we're going to do. That's the next agenda item. This just sets the fee for the permit itself.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
We'll get into that discussion about the permit itself next agenda item.
Thank you. Thanks for putting this together. This is a long time coming, and we've pushed it out, and thanks for resurrecting it and getting those fees in. I like the idea of lowering the business license for simple businesses. That was a good call. Okay, do we have any questions, comments, or concerns from the public?
There. Yes, Jackie Morris Lopez.
Thank you. Welcome, Jackie. You have 3 minutes on this. This is an action item.
Sorry, I was muted. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I think it's great that this is finally coming to fruition. I agree with Councilman Freeman. We had spoken about this several years back, that it was a missed opportunity to bring the short-term rentals under the purview of the city to issue permits, and also, more importantly, do inspections as well, that these units are safe. I guess my comment would be, this is a one-time permitted fee, and also since they are in a business, I think I heard Brian say something about a business license, because they are operating as a, I think, kind of like a boutique hotel. I mean, they are Airbnbs, but they are serving as a short-term rental hotel. Also, as in the ordinance, is there a consideration as to a limit as to how many one property or residents can develop into short-term rentals? Would that also be addressed in your ordinance, or is it strictly permitting fees and whatnot? Thank you.
Yes, we'll answer those questions in the next agenda item, I think. This strictly relates to the appropriateness of the fee. And fees based on the amount that we believe will be initially necessary to do the inspections. The question regarding the one-time fee, the initial fee for processing is $611 plus the hourly, any additional hours that might be necessary. And then there's an annual renewal fee that goes with this as well. So those are the fees that are proposed. And we'll get into the permit or the supplemental standards next agenda item.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns from the public?
No, Mayor, I don't see any other hands raised.
Thank you very much. I will entertain a motion for this resolution.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? I'll second it. Oh, you froze for a second there, Cesar. I'll second it. Sorry, go ahead. Roll call, please.
Certainly, Councilmember Edge is absent. Councilmember Flores.
Aye.
Councilmember Friels is absent. Councilmember Freeman.
Aye.
Mayor Jordan.
Aye.
With 3 members of the council being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 3-0-2 with 2 members absent.
Thank you very much. 6B, adopt the resolution of the City of San Juan Bautista establishing supplemental occupancy and uses standards and procedures for short-term rentals. Assistant City Manager.
Yeah, so here we have the actual supplemental procedures, and I think the thing that I'd like to emphasize is that we looked at a lot of different jurisdictions regarding their ordinances and their resolutions and so forth, and we decided that we would really want to not go too far afield in our ordinance and develop a complex set of regulations with respect to short-term rentals, because it just didn't seem warranted. We need to know where they are. We need to know that they're going to be paying a transient occupancy tax. and that they're going to be complying with our standards, our municipal code standards and regulations across the board. My concern is that we'd be establishing a permission for people to rent out these spaces in their homes without really knowing anything about the unit itself, without an inspection protocol. And, so I felt it was important to at least establish fire code safety standards for inspection within the permit process. And also because we can't really apply building code standards to some of these because nothing is really being constructed. And so the building code is hard to apply in these situations. There's nothing for an inspector or a building official to really look at. So we fall back on the housing code, which has a set of requirements for occupancy per room, room size, sanitation, and so forth. So these are minimum standards, and I have included in the agenda packet examples of the checklist that we intend to use. I worked with the building official on these and the fire marshal, fire chief on these checklists, and also with our city finance staff on the transient occupancy tax form. So these forms and the standards have been fully vetted, and that's why it took so long to get this put together. So I appreciate your patience in that regard. So we're pretty sure that when we begin implementing these supplemental standards that we're going to have safe and sanitary units and that the transient occupancy tax will be paid. There's a requirement for auditing and there's an annual renewal. If people don't pass the inspection initially, they don't get the permit. If they don't, if they run into trouble adhering to our standards, then they won't get a renewal. There is also as part of this application package, there is a good neighbor contract. And if a particular user fails under those contract provisions, then their renewal is going to be subject to careful scrutiny. So I didn't want to create new regulations. We just need to implement the ones that we have in the best way that we can. And that's what these standards do, I think.
Perfect. Well done. Well said. Vice Mayor Flores, questions, comments, concerns?
Good explanation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Freeman.
Just to follow up on what Vice Mayor Flores said, thank you, Brian. It's kind of like the second half of the project, and I like it and ready to go. In your thank you, Councilmember Freeman. In your report, I liked the statement failure to pass the fire housing, yada yada, could result in suspension or revocation of non-renewal. And putting in the good neighbor contract, that was really nice to see, keeping in mind that we are a small community and these are in neighborhoods. Our city is in a neighborhood, and to put that in there was great. Thank you.
One thing that I'd like to mention, and I had an early conversation with the city attorney about this, that we have a number of short-term rentals already existing, and every time there is a new rental or a new stay, these regulations will apply. So there's no grandfathering as part of this process.
So every month there's somebody going to be signing all of these papers.
Yeah.
Yes, it should follow.
Or as soon as we discover that they're operating a short-term rental based on even one stay, then we'll be doing an enforcement action. Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification. Questions, comments, and concerns from the public?
I don't see any hands raised, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Can I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman, and seconding from Vice Mayor Flores. Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Edge is absent. Councilmember Flores.
Aye.
Councilmember Friels is absent. Councilmember Freeman.
Aye.
Mayor Jordan.
Aye.
With 3 members of the council being present, the motion, as stated by the maker, passes 3-0-2 with 2 members absent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Adopt a resolution of the City of San Juan Bautista approving an agreement between the city and the Edmundo Loaiza trustee of Edmundo M. Loaiza Living Trust dated January 6, 1987, trustee of the Rosa Loaiza 2002 Revocable Trust dated December 13th, 2002, to set the date of valuation for property required for public improvement. City manager. Oh,
I'm going to do that.
city attorney.
Madam Mayor.
I'm here.
So basically, Madam Mayor, this is an agreement that relates to the roundabout that Meritage is required to install around First Street as a condition of approval of the Rancho Vista subdivision. And we've been having a little trouble getting them in there to construct the roundabout. They've been ready to go, and they need a construction license from the Loaiza Trust group that you just mentioned to proceed with the construction of the roundabout. And the Loaiza's attorney has refused to give them a construction license until the city signed an agreement as attached to the staff report. And this agreement is almost hypothetical at this point. Normally what you'd have is, the Loaizas are also doing a subdivision. So normally what you see on the map is a dedication of this property on the map, but their map hasn't been submitted for approval yet. So they're trying to arrive at a valuation for this property that is going to be required for the roundabout and also for their subdivision. And so the process we are getting a valuation, an appraisal right now. And hopefully that appraisal will be enough. But if the parties are forced to go into an eminent domain action, that would be where the city would have to force the sale and purchase of this property and go through the courts for the valuation. Then the Loaiza's attorney wants the date of the valuation not to be the date set in the eminent domain law, which would be sometime in the future, but she wants it to be set right now. And this is okay with us at this point because the appraisal we're doing would be for this time period as well. It may have some implications in the future when we go to, if we do end up in eminent domain, it may change the valuation. We don't think it's going to be a huge change in valuation, but their attorney does. But again, if we do get this agreement approved and it's signed tonight, the roundabout construction will start tomorrow. So this would be required to have the construction start tomorrow.
Awesome, thank you for that. Vice Mayor Flores.
No comment, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Freeman.
Hang on a second. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm in favor of doing this to get the process rolling. I just have one comment that's not about anybody or anything, but I really fail to see how improving their property and improving the access, egress and ingress to their property, to me, that would actually raise the value of their property. You know, we're going to build something for them, including a road into their subdivision, and that's a thing of value. They ought to be jumping for joy instead of harassing us with these letters. End of my comment.
Absolutely. How many times can one dedicate a property? We were here several months ago. Do we have any public comment?
Mayor, we do have a letter submitted on behalf of the trust, the Louisa Trust. And if you want, we can read the letter into the record.
Please.
Have you got it, Trish, or do you want me to read it?
I left without it. I'm sorry.
That's fine. I'm happy to read it. This is from Jacqueline M. Zitschke, attorney at law, representing the Louisas. Mayor Jordan and City Council members, the City Council will be considering on its agenda tonight an agreement to set the date of valuation for the city's purchasing or taking of property owned by Rosa and Edmundo Loaiza for the planned roundabout improvements at First Street in San Juan Bautista. The main purpose of this agreement is to allow for Meritage and the city to begin its construction activities in advance of the city's purchase or taking of the Loaiza's property in a manner that does not adversely affect the amount of just compensation that should be awarded to the Loaizas. The date of valuation applicable under the eminent domain laws for taking of property is generally fixed by statute as the date of deposit or the date of commencement of condemnation proceedings. She cites the Civil Code. Because construction activities will commence prior to these statutory dates of valuation, the intent of the proposed agreement is to fix the date of valuation prior to these construction activities for the purpose of avoiding a deflation in the value of the property due to these construction activities. By the way of background, our office initially provided a proposed construction license agreement to the city last spring. Our initial efforts sought to secure a firm date for completion of these roundabout improvements. As the City Council is aware, the delays in completion of these improvements are resulting in damages to Mr. and Mrs. Loaiza by causing the delay in their ability to complete their minor subdivision. Our subsequent efforts in negotiating the proposed date of valuation agreement currently being considered by the City Council was the result of city staff and city attorney later determining that the city did not wish to be a party to the construction license agreement. The city staff retained an appraiser to determine the fair market value of the Loaiza property, including severance damages. As the City Council may recall, in July 2021, the City Council considered and approved a reimbursement agreement related to these roundabout improvements to be considered by Meritage pursuant to conditions of approval imposed by the Rancho Vista subdivision project. Included, are my 3 minutes up yet? Included as an exhibit to this reimbursement agreement was a grossly undervalued amount of $10,000 for the Loaiza property. The city staff anticipates that the formal appraisal being prepared will be completed in November, and this appraisal should also identify the additional loss in value to the Loaiza's remaining property not being taken, referred to as severance damages. We have provided construction estimates to the city staff showing the additional infrastructure related costs that will need to be incurred due to the planned roundabout improvements. The proposed valuation agreement will serve to facilitate the appraisal work currently being conducted and will also set the valuation date in the event the city determines to proceed with the condemnation process. We respectfully request that the City Council approve the proposed agreement. Sincerely, Jacqueline Zitschke. Okay, there you go.
Well, I for one am disappointed with all of that.
Okay.
Okay, can I have a motion, please, to adopt?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Edge is absent. Councilmember Flores.
Aye.
Councilmember Friels is absent. Councilmember Freeman.
Aye.
Mayor Jordan.
Aye.
With 3 members of the council being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 3-0-2 with 2 members of the council absent.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Deborah, for that.
So Don, can you sign on my behalf?
Yeah,
I think
I'd be happy to.
form for me. You're authorized. Thanks.
Be happy to. Thank you. And there will be a pre-construction meeting, and notices have been mailed to the neighbors, especially Rancho Vista and those on First Street.
Oh, so are they shoveling tomorrow?
No, but there'll be a pre-construction meeting on Thursday morning.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. D, adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Juan Bautista establishing a dedicated sheriff deputy assigned to the city. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. In the City Council established a public safety initiative in its budget, and then followed that with the establishment of a public safety ad hoc committee that began meeting this fiscal year to study where there might be gaps in services and how services could be improved. And these meetings have been quite productive. We had one last night, and last night the committee reviewed this resolution that's before you. We've had talk on several different occasions over the past year and a half of returning to a dedicated deputy, one that's dedicated to our city, 3 or 4 12-hour shifts per week, depending on the city's needs. It could be modified to address special events, and all within our current contract. So when Sheriff Taylor came and spoke to the committee at their September meeting, September 20, he suggested that we send a letter to the sheriff, to himself, asking that we return to this dedicated officer, dedicated deputy system. That way we would be able to get back to more of a community-oriented policing, and we'd have the same person grow familiar with our community and its unique needs. This is opposed to the current system. When a call goes out for service, it's handled through dispatch, and the sergeant decides which deputy is available and who responds and when. We would have the same deputy responding to as many calls as possible while he's on duty, while he or she is on duty, and then be facilitating that with help that's made available through our current sheriff's contract. So we felt, the committee felt, that this was a change in the good direction. And I know that Councilmember Friels has supported it, and the mayor can speak for herself. But that's why this resolution is before you, is to put in writing for the sheriff to move forward and recruit and hopefully appoint a deputy that's dedicated to our community again. And all within the same costs as our original standing agreement. So with that, I'm happy to take questions, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Vice Mayor Flores?
I think it's a good idea, and it's about time.
Thank you. Councilmember Freeman?
I agree completely with Caesar. So, let's do it.
Thank you. I have a couple of comments that we spoke about in the ad hoc committee. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whereas 5, within the 84-hour time frame, that goes to call outs for the deputy. If there were an emergency outside of the Wednesday to Saturday or Thursday to Sunday time frame, it sounds like we don't have the opportunity to call. If something happened on Monday or Tuesday, there's nobody to call. But if we could remove that, just to assure everybody that we have access to the sheriff's department if there were an emergency, if a citizen called, just because it's Monday doesn't mean they will not arrive.
Yes, Mayor, I forgot to mention that before I went home last night, I made 3 amendments to the resolution based on the Public Safety Committee's review. And I emailed that to the council. I'm not sure you had a chance to see that before our meeting, but the city clerk is in receipt of an amended resolution that makes that change, plus a couple other small changes.
Awesome. The ones that we discussed the other day.
Yes, exactly. There were 3 in total.
Okay.
But the other 2 were minor.
Yep, they were. Okay, any public comment on this?
Responding. Yes, Jackie Morris Lopez.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Jackie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this is a wonderful idea. I appreciate staff for spearheading this and reaching out to the sheriffs. I guess my question would be, would this add an extra charge to our contract that we have with the sheriff's department? And this would be putting our substation to use, correct?
Correct. I assume that our substation will be used more by the dedicated officer. And as I stated earlier, this does not require an amendment to our contract, so it's completely within our current costs, no new costs.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. Any further public comment?
No, Mayor, there are no other hands raised.
Thank you very much. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank
I'll
you very
second.
much. Thank you. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Councilmember Edge is absent. Councilmember Flores.
Aye.
Councilmember Friels is absent. Councilmember Freeman.
Aye.
Mayor Jordan.
Aye.
With 3 members of the council being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 3-0-2 with 2 members of the council absent.
Thank you. 6E.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is one staff report written for 2 resolutions. So E and F are both recommended job descriptions. When we recruited for office assistant, the one resolution addresses a new office technician job description because when we recruited for office assistant, we recruited for a position with 3 years experience, and we struggled to get a labor pool and responses at a salary range of number 53, which is about $26.50 per hour. We did get some good candidates with less than 3 years experience. And so we went forward and hired one as a provisional appointment. This is Veronica Munoz Noriega, who's been working with us for 2-3 weeks now. She has an accounting degree, accounting and economics degree from UC Davis, but she doesn't have much experience in the field. So we're paying her at a reduced rate, $5 less, about $21.65 an hour, until such a time that we can recruit again. So we have one position approved in the budget, and I wanted to make that clear, but we would advertise for both positions, and depending on the responses we got, we could fill either one. We could fill the office technician position or the office assistant position. So the purpose of bringing this job description forward is so we could re-recruit. Maybe Veronica will apply. I think she will. She's a joy to work with and seems to enjoy her work for the city. But regardless, it's an open recruitment where we start over again, and she's aware of that. In the meantime, she's had some great experience with us. So either way, we would fill just one position, either office technician or assistant, based on the results of our recruitment. So that's the nature of that job description. It's just like the one you approved for office assistant, but we refined down experience and made it a little less technical than the more experienced job description. And then the maintenance worker job descriptions, 1 and 2 are combined. They reflect changes that are made to remove the credentials. Back in 2006, the city manager decided that we should have water collections credential in there and sewer collections credential and a water distribution credential there. And I was looking through these and thinking, we need generalists. We need maintenance workers who are willing to fix bathrooms and put gates and fences so we can get equipment into storm basins like Meritage, and to do all kinds of things for us. And our team needs to work together. And I think that gets back to my effort to have this teamwork mentality, culture that we're trying to build. So I've refined these maintenance worker job descriptions that were last changed in 2006 by removing the credentials. And what I failed to do on this council agenda, as if we don't have enough to do already, is I have a second staff report I'll bring forward in November that offers a premium pay of 2.5%. So those employees that we have who have the distribution level 1 or level 2 and have the collections level 1 or level 2, they will get if approved, 2.5% premium pay for having achieved those credentials. If we hire someone that has those credentials coming on board, then they would get the base pay for the maintenance worker plus the incentive pay. So that's the plan moving forward. I apologize for not having the other staff reports on this agenda because that's an amendment to our personnel policies. I do have Liebert and Cassidy reviewing those, which is why they didn't come forward. I had finished the report and was waiting for Liebert and Cassidy to get back to me. No excuse. We'll do this tonight. We'll consider these job descriptions tonight, and then the second piece at our next meeting. So with that, I have 2 resolutions, one updating the maintenance worker job description and a second resolution updating the office technician resolution. I'm happy to respond to anyone's questions regarding either one. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Vice Mayor Flores?
Comments, thank you. I agree with both of those suggestions.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Freeman?
I agree with the overall concept and I'm supportive of this resolution or whatever. But I would like to remind the city manager that a former city manager once told me the reason why they do things back 10 years ago is because there was an issue and a problem. And that issue and problem was we didn't have a maintenance worker with a T2 or a D2 or T1 and T whatever it is certification. And if we're going to run a water system, it's incumbent that we have someone with those certifications. Now I know that now we hire, who is it, Clearwater or somebody like that.
All clear water.
All clear, yeah, and they have all those certifications, and I understand that, but you know, sometimes vendors come and go. So I just wanted to leave that warning out there, but I support it.
Thank you. I'm all in favor of the obtaining certs and getting compensation for that. If our maintenance workers don't have certifications, they cannot touch a distribution appurtenance. They can't apply herbicides or pesticides. So we're all aware of that you need a cross-connection control specialist to do surveys. You need a backflow tester to test. And if our maintenance 1 and maintenance 2 don't do that, they cannot do that. If they don't have those certifications, they cannot do that.
Right. Understood. Clear.
Our operators, our maintenance workers are certified now, to some extent.
Yes.
Okay. Say that one more time.
And so are our contractors.
Yes.
We have
right.
a landscape contractor that can administer the pesticides if necessary, et cetera. Right.
Perfect. And we have enough things for our guys, our folks, I apologize, our men and women to get by during an 8-hour shift to fill their day without doing any of the other extraneous
potholes. Right.
one or two. And the office assistant, that's an either or, not both.
Correct. One position. Yeah.
Okay,
so
perfect. Perfect. So I guess we can take, well, let's take them separately. Oh, I'm sorry. Public comment.
No, Mayor, I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, thank you. I really do like the incentive for them to get certifications. Motion.
So moved.
Thank you. I'll second it.
John walked
I'm
out.
sorry, is that for the office
E.
assistant?
This is for the maintenance worker 1 and 2, E.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Yes. Councilmember Edge is absent. Councilmember Flores?
Aye.
Councilmember Friels is absent. Councilmember Freeman?
Aye.
Mayor Jordan?
Aye.
With 3 members of the council being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 3-0-2 with 2 members absent.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion for the office technician job description.
So moved.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes, Councilmember Edge is absent. Councilmember Flores?
Aye.
Councilmember Friels is absent. Councilmember Freeman?
Aye.
Mayor Jordan?
Aye.
With 3 members of the council being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 3-0-2 with 2 members absent.
Thank you very much. Discussion items. Formation of a city council standing committee for business improvement, resiliency, and overall community economic development. City manager.
Mayor, if I could just beg your pardon, if maybe we could take a 7B first. We have Enrique been hanging in there for 3 hours waiting to talk about CDBG. Could we get rid of CDBG?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
7B, county requests to amend city use of $231,284 community block grant fund CARES Act V2 and V3. Enrique Arreola, have at it.
Well, wait a minute, wait. Let me just give you some background.
Okay.
But Enrique's here, Deputy Director. Thank you, Enrique, for hanging in there.
Thank you.
The original application for CDBG V2 and COVID-3 was due May 7th, 2021, and the council took quick action and signed an MOU to work with the county in Hollister and to use the city's contribution of $231,000 to go towards homeless services, particularly public services. And our resolution states that it would be used to develop a strike team, some kind of response team that could come to our city and help us in the event we come in Monday morning and someone's RV is broken down or someone is homeless in our town and needs attention. And I think there was a little confusion, and I'll take partial responsibility for that. What the county was trying to do was begin a homeless camp so that RV would have a place to move to in a managed camp area dedicated out at the Hollister Airport. And that location was struck down. The City Council of Hollister did not approve that. And so at that point, and Enrique can correct me if I'm wrong, but I understood that they had to go back to HCD and talk to them about this $800,000 appropriation for public services. And it was agreed that the money should be moved all over to repairing the shelter. And so having learned that and working with Enrique and also working with California Consulting got on the phone and I sent a memo earlier to the council, and I'm happy to bring that up on the screen if necessary. But California Consulting spoke with HCD and gave us basic outlines suggesting that we could possibly use that $230,000 directly ourselves, and with their support. We didn't have their support back before the May deadline, but we have it now to manage CDBG. So that's an encouraging thing. We can keep that money and serve one of these national objectives. The city is barely eligible at 51.6% low and mod income, majority over 50%. So housing assistance, public facilities, public services, planning and technical studies. So this is the memo that California Consulting sent us, and they recommended that we have further conversation with the county and HCD as soon as possible, because the county has to revise its MOU by the end of the month. So we did mention to some of the council members that if the council wanted to amend the MOU and keep the money in homeless with the county, then we would need to meet again and adopt a resolution to update our MOU. So that's the nature of the report. And Enrique and I spoke about this late this afternoon, and Enrique was going to try and reach out to HCD. And so Enrique, please share your side of the issues for us so that we have a complete understanding.
Well, thank you very much, City Council members. So as you recall, in May of this year, the county did submit a joint collaborative application between the City of Hollister, San Benito County, and the City of San Juan Bautista. And what we proposed, we submitted 2 applications, actually, one under public services for approximately $850,000 for an encampment, to operate an encampment, as Don said, by the jail next to the airport. We also submitted a second application for public facilities to include some repairs needed at the shelter. The public service application also included staff to provide outreach, operations, and supportive services for the entire jurisdictions, including San Juan Bautista. Because of maybe residents and businesses objecting to the encampment being where it was proposed, the Board of Supervisors later rescinded their decision for the operations of an encampment. So we had no choice but to go back to HCD to modify our proposal to include the public facilities only, because there are a lot of needs with rehabbing the facility, primarily with the roof. You know, every year when it rains, there's always leaks, and we want to not only prevent, we want to solve this problem so that we don't run into a position of having to shut or causing additional damage that you know, at the shelter. So that's kind of the direction. The HCD was in favor of that. And Don mentioned recently that, you know, there may be shift in direction. So our Board of Supervisors has this agenda item next week, still as a collaborative partnership. So if this decision moves so that San Juan Bautista proposes it as your own application, then, you know, we would need to amend the resolution and the MOU and remove San Juan Bautista. I mean, it's just more of a process. I think the timing is horrible, but that is what it is. We're still here to provide support to the entire jurisdictions. So, you know, I did have a talk with HCD today. I just wanted to confirm that it's possible for San Juan Bautista to submit your own application. So the response was, yeah, you could, if that's your decision. So it's just a matter of making that determination and just moving forward with it. So at this point, I still think there's a lot of benefit by keeping it as is. There's a lot of needs right now, and we want to make sure that it's attended to serve our homeless population at the shelter, including anyone that may reside within the city of San Juan Bautista.
Thank you. Okay, Mayor.
Thank you
Any
very much.
questions?
Vice Mayor Flores, questions, comments, concerns?
No comments.
Thank you. Councilmember Freeman?
Yes, I have a number of comments. Hello, Enrique. And you know that I've always been very supportive of the cab board and helping the homeless and everything. However, when the Board of Supervisors rescinded the proposal a couple of months ago for the new encampment, in my opinion, kind of all bets are off now. And I would propose that we reallocate the money. We can use some of that money for particularly upgrading the community center, making it acoustically reasonable for people to be there. We can help out our own seniors, many of whom do not have a lot of money. We can have daily meals there instead of once a week. And I know we have some budgeted money for the acoustics in the community center, but I don't know how much it's going to cost altogether. But I believe we should take care of ourselves first. And then I also, I've been on the council for way too long now, and I promised certain people in the city that I'd help get basketball courts available, and I've done a horrible job at that. And so I really want to move those fences back or have access to the basketball courts at San Juan School. If anybody has children in Hollister, they can go play basketball there. They can go to Aromas and play basketball, but you can't do it in San Juan, and that's not right. So I propose we reallocate some of the money for moving fences and upgrading the community center so it benefits San Juan Bautista. We as city council people have a responsibility for San Juan Bautista, and that's who I'm advocating for, is San Juan Bautista. Thank you.
Absolutely. Way back when we first approved this allocation, I felt as though we were strong-armed, that we had no choice because we didn't have the resources to do anything with these funds. And we had specific requirements if we were to proceed with this. And Councilmember Edge was the only one that said, no, I don't agree with sending these funds to for what they were supposed to be earmarked for. We have a great responsibility to our community, for our aged community, for our youth, to do something here. Has your group done anything for our homelessness? Has there been outreach over here? I think originally we asked for updates on a monthly basis on where those monies were spent.
I'm not sure what money you're referring to.
Well, has any outreach been done out in San Juan? I know that our code enforcement officer brought a homeless person out there because there was nobody to assist from the shelter or from the county. So I am all for keeping all of the money here in San Juan, especially since the California consultants are willing to help out on this for a small fee, I'm sure. But we desperately need to take care of our own, and I'm in favor of keeping it here. Do we have any public comments?
No, Mayor, we do not.
Thank you very much. So where do we go from here? Do we make this a resolution?
So, and I don't know if Councilmember Flores has any comments. He sits on Enrique's board. But I would follow up with the California Consulting and even include Enrique in a conversation with HCD, and the four of us can get together maybe between now and Friday afternoon and come up with some direction. It depends on the kinds of deadlines. HCD, it sounds like they have some discretion and see what kind of deadlines we're facing and see how how fast we have to respond to meet their deadlines. I think that's really the key question I have in my mind, because we'd be starting from scratch. They would like to see a set of plans to put an industrial kitchen in the community hall and do the acoustics, and then they want to fund it. So we would have to hire someone to put that package together. So not just California Consulting, but an architect, that type of professional. And I think the basketball courts are a little simpler application. But so I need to get a better idea of how much time we have to respond to make sure we can get our ducks in a row. Because the last thing, the worst, as I said in the staff report, the worst case scenario is we don't get it at all. So,
which is what we were up against the last time, faced with an imminent deadline of not being able to do anything if we don't earmark the money. So that's where I felt that we were strong-armed into doing that, and so we have wasted 6 months of not being able to find or put these monies towards something to help our community, to help our aged, to help our youth. Yeah, if we can, sorry, go ahead, Enrique.
No, I was just going to say that initially when we decided to partner, it wasn't me or the county asking the San Juan Bautista, we want your money. I think it was mostly a decision that we made based on discussions with Don. So in the spirit of collaboration, we said, sure, why not? So it's completely fine if City of San Juan Bautista wants to shift gears this late in the ball game. The application was actually due back in May, and if HCD is willing to allow you to submit one now, then that's completely fine. I just need to know the direction, because I would need to remove you guys from the application, from the resolution, and also the MOU, and then you would in turn just coordinate things with the HCD. And if you want to do a public facilities application or a service, there could be one or multiple applications you'll need to submit. So anyway, so it's really your decision. It doesn't affect me. And like I said, in the spirit of collaboration, we want to move this forward. So if you change your mind, then that's fine.
Thank you.
I have a suggestion.
Go ahead, John.
In the spirit of cooperation, because I understand and I want to help the homeless as much as anybody. Maybe we can, and I defer to Don and maybe the city attorney on this. Maybe we can split up the money. Maybe we can give a third to the county and invest in the homeless shelter and the bad roof there and all that stuff. And maybe we can keep 2/3 for our basketball courts and community center and whatever other projects we can think of. I know I'm kind of making it even more complicated, and that's one of the things I'm good at, but just a suggestion.
The ultimate use of the funds, should we decide to file our own application, because we're going to have a public meeting, as we did for the USDA. We're going to have to bring the community together, show them what our options are, what our recommendations are, receive community feedback, and then based on that feedback, make a determination of what the best project is. So that whole process, that whole community engagement process needs to unfold in time to get an application in for the deadline. So it won't be a decision that I make or that the four of us make or six of us make. It'll be through a community engagement process.
So if you have conversations with HCD, we could potentially do something on the 26th.
No, it won't have. It's going to be just like the USDA. The problem with the USDA was they needed the ad in the newspaper, and that takes like 2 weeks. It would be a month to 6 weeks.
Okay, so okay, So I'm guessing the council, I'm going to say that the council wishes to have Don meet with HCD and Enrique and whomever else to figure out how we can do this, if we can do it, if we can meet timelines to keep the money ourselves, and if California consultants can help us spend it.
Okay, and I'll get you a memo to describe that conversation for each of you so that the members that aren't here today are all on the same speed, and to help Enrique with his board. And Enrique, if you can't make it, we'll do this with California Consulting and keep you posted, because I know you're super busy. So, but we should be able to learn more between now and Friday.
All right, we'll be in touch, Don.
Thank you very much, Enrique. Thank you, Don.
All right, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Okay. Formation of the City Council Standing Committee for Business Improvement, Resiliency, and Overall Community Economic Development. Brian.
Hello. Yeah, so this is discussion item, and I have a minor correction to make under discussion. Maddie Act is spelled M-A-D-D-Y, not M-A-D-D-I-E. M-A-D-D-I-E is what my granddaughter does when she wants to do a magic show. So anyway, so that's just a correction. This discussion came about through a informal conversation among the business forum participants. That meeting occurs every couple of weeks. It's a loose affiliation of business interests, downtown business owners, and so forth here in town. And the suggestion was that the business forum felt that there could be a more organized representation, a liaison to the city council and to other economic development interests here to formulate economic development programs and put together resources that the business community can use. And sort of very practical approach to economic development. And the more that we talk about this, the more interested the EDC becomes in participating with the business forum and us, and their staff become more interested in participating with San Juan Bautista to put programs together that will help our business community. So the idea here is that a standing committee would focus on the need for enhanced resources. There would be organized communication, informed communication, programs that bubble up to the city council from that conversation, and an ongoing liaison with county economic development interests between those interests and the city council with respect to economic development programs. So I think it's an exciting topic to think about, worth exploring. As a Maddie Act committee, it would be a formal committee of the city council. You would establish the committee, its purpose, its objectives. You would select members, establish terms of office, and operations for that committee. So that's basically the idea here, is to have an ongoing committee that would be able to explore those resources that the city council itself may not have the time or the opportunity to explore, and bring those things back to city council for action. So that's the idea here. And I put in the staff report, there's a little bullet list of the types of things that the committee would potentially do with respect to economic development. Okay.
Thank you for that. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Mayor Flores, where'd you go?
Right here. No comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember
Good
Freeman?
idea though, Brian. Yeah, Brian.
I think it sounds like a good idea. I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. Yeah, I sit on these meetings they were on a weekly basis. Now they're bi-weekly. But it's an opportunity for the business association to have, or not the business association, sorry, the merchants and hospitality to have a direct link to the council. Yeah, I'm all for this.
Yeah, we would perhaps have this as it could potentially be a mayor's select committee, and we'd be looking for ideas regarding appointments eventually. But the first thing that needs to be done is the committee itself would be established, and then after that, appointments to the committee would be made, and they would be made formally, and those terms of office would be established in accordance with MADI Act requirements. And so, you know, sort of a two-step process here, and we would start putting together the structure for the committee for presentation at the next city council meeting.
Perfect. Do we have any public comment?
No, Mayor, there are no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Then the council is directing staff to put this together for the next meeting.
Very good.
Thank you very much. Future agenda items. Vice Mayor Flores?
I don't have any, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Freeman?
Yes, how to spend the CARES Act money quickly.
Okay.
And I can come up with it quickly.
Something that Councilmember Edge brought up last month was to change hours starting at 4 to 6. I don't know if we could have that as a discussion item.
Right, Mayor, we can, and I think I did research that. It requires an amendment to our ordinance because our regular meetings are set at 6 p.m. So we would have to revise our ordinance to do that should the council agree to a 4 p.m. start. Just one complication there are for our folks who work till 5 or 6 p.m. It makes it harder for them to provide the public comment. That's all.
Very hard. We're decreasing public participation.
And we can have that discussion. We can't have a discussion right now on it. So if we can agendize that. And I'm not sure how anybody else feels about this, and it doesn't sound like this is actually a viable option in light of the conversations that we were having about wastewater rates, but perhaps a discussion of a one-time forgiveness program for legitimate service breaks, going back to whatever usage was the previous year at that time. A discussion item for a future agenda. Anything else for the good? No future agenda items? Okay, comments, City Council, Vice Mayor Flores. Final
Yes,
comments.
yeah, I have comments. Let everyone know that there is a LAFCO training at 5 p.m. at Richmark on the 27th. And that's all the elected officials are invited and whoever else wants to go, I guess. Contact Bill Nicholson.
That's also on Zoom as well, correct?
I believe so, but it's an in-person thing that they're saying, but I guess they're gonna do hybrid. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Bill Nicholson has all the details on that. And
Thank
I
you
think
very
they sent
much.
something. Trish
Yes,
sent something.
yes,
didn't
they did, he did. It was, something was sent on it.
Right. The reason I brought it up is he called me up and says, hey, mention it during the meeting, so I'm
Perfect.
mentioning it.
You're mentioning it. Any other comments? Any other final comments?
I'll mention one. On Friday morning at 10 a.m., we have an integrated waste management meeting, and we'll be discussing various paths to get us into compliance. We talked a little bit about it about 2.5 hours ago on our organics and getting to recycle our organics, and the meeting will be on how to improve that and how to improve several other processes in our solid waste system. So 10 a.m. Board of Supervisors, Friday morning.
Board of Supervisors?
No,
Yeah,
integrated waste management.
the building.
Location.
Okay, is that also on Zoom? Is the public invited?
Yes, it will have a Zoom component, and the public is always invited. It's a Brown Act meeting.
Thank you very much. I have nothing new. No other comments. Bliss Blends opened their doors, the smoothie shop in located in between Mrs. B and the Mission Cafe. They opened on Friday. New business in town. City Manager Reynolds. Sorry, go ahead, Vice Mayor.
I just ran into Rob Rivas is having a fundraising, whatever, at the Bears Hideaway tomorrow at 5:30.
Bring your checkbook.
So I have something on Friday, but at 4 o'clock, says Community Hall. Redistrict or something?
That's redistricting for the county.
Oh, right.
That's still on?
Redistricting for the county supervisors districts.
Is that still on, that meeting?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
You're up, City Manager Reynolds. Final thoughts, comments?
No, that was a huge agenda, and just wanted to thank the City Council for their support. I'm afraid we're going to hear more about flags in our future. Just a heads up.
Yes, yes, we are. City Attorney Deborah Mall. Thank you very much. Deputy City Clerk.
No, I don't have any comments, but thank you.
Thank you. Assistant City Manager Brian, anything since you're still
Nothing
here?
from me, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Flores?
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman?
Aye.
Mayor Jordan?
Aye.
We have a approval to adjourn.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Don, for everything tonight. Great meeting.
Thank you, Brian.
3 hours and 47 minutes is a long time. Good night, guys.
Thank
And
you.
Good night.
ladies.
Good night, everybody. Thanks, Deb.